and regulate.
Well, yes, if it gives me such a right.
Valery, is it possible to imagine such a situation that, as you see, yes, there is a development of the ideal, yes, that is, an ideal competitor for the development of events? What does it look like for each person? If we imagine that we have 13 people here, yes, we all worked with wands, yes, we got into a pyramid, and so on. And what should it look like in general at the level of the whole civilization?
Yes, the question is so multi-level. Well, look, then let's start with the second one. If humanity introduces the preserved technologies that we have just mentioned and begins to use them effectively and regularly, then our civilization, the energy ecological situation on Earth will change in a maximum of 20-25 years.
Наша цивилизация, энергоэкологическая ситуация на Земле изменится максимум через 20-25 лет.
And it will be a fundamentally different civilization. That is, fast enough. But for this, as it is written in May's text, people should start thinking in the same direction, working as a whole, complementing each other very highly, and appreciating and paying attention to the opinion of those with whom you work next to.
И оценивая и внимательно относясь к мнению тех, с кем ты рядом работаешь.
Because the most important and highest priority in space is a person, his personality.
Это человек, его личность.
The level of civilization is assessed by the depth of understanding of who a person is.
Оценивается глубиной понимания, кто такой человек.
And so the normal evolution of civilization begins from the moment when a person realizes that God, the Creator, is looking at me through the eyes of a person next to me. And if I understand this, as you understand, I will not hit anyone in the nose, and nothing like this will happen. By helping my neighbor, I help myself, because God looks at me through him, and, in fact, the realization that we are a particle of the great principle, and in this way we help not only ourselves, but we help him. This is a very important thought, the integrity of which was tried to change in the first place.
Целостность которой попытались изменить в первую очередь. Именно это.
In other words, let's call it that, the dark teachings, of which there have been many in the history of civilization, have always put forward the same hypothesis, not so much as they pointed the way. What is right if we leave this mortal physical world as soon as possible and quickly go to God, to the great, and so on?
Правильно, если мы как можно скорее оставим этот бренный физический мир и быстренько уйдем к Богу, к великому и так далее.
At the same time, naturally not realizing that what we call the physical world, just think about it, this is the plan. This is the only plan through which the Creator knows the world. He gets to know the environment in which he finds himself. He gets to know himself.
Создатель познает мир. Он познает среду, в которой он оказался. Он познает самого себя.
And when he learns this physical plane, and he learns through people, he created you. In other words, you are needed here and now. That is, you are his little cells. Accordingly, chaos begins in the place where this knowledge is somehow lost, and this individualization begins. Unfortunately, everything that is happening now is mainly in the Western world. And this is what we, who live on this territory, have preserved as a genetic condition for our joint coexistence. We still know what friendship is, we still understand these things, and therefore, all the greatest things will begin in Russia, and begin in Siberia. In general, I am very glad that I live here. Here is such a long, but the answer. I don't teach. Can I? Please.
No, this one. Please, I have 4 questions. Can I answer?
Well, not right away.
Ну,
It
сразу
won't
нет,
work
ты
one
просто
at a
по
time.
одному.
One
По
at a
одному.
time.
The first question is about children, and here's Lucia. It's clear what she says. Adults there inadequately go and pull. And children are, well, this is right. There's a demon in the village and his miracle as if having fun in something. Can he somehow inhabit them? It often happens. Maybe the wild children have protection. Or, in general, they have some kind of protection in the universe, that no matter how it concerns, only they can interact with him at some age. That is, we do not take the moment that they are born as an agent of the address. Yes, it's just that the kids have.
Tell me honestly, do you love children?
Not his own. Yes, strangers so.
It's noticeable. It's noticeable. Yes. It won't be easy for me to answer this question.
На этот вопрос.
Somehow. Somehow? Yes, yes, because I
Потому
just
что
love
я-то как
everyone.
раз люблю всех.
Teach me.
Well, no,
Ну,
they
нет,
don't
этому
teach
не
that.
учат.
It is
Это
either
либо
given,
дано,
or it is,
либо
or
есть,
it is
либо
not.
нет.
I have one.
All right.
Ладно.
Then
Ну,
look,
смотрите, когда
when you
вы
come
в
into
мир
the world as a
приходите,
child, it takes a
ребенком,
certain time, several cycles, when you
требуется
become aware of
определенное
yourself,
время,
when you become an adult.
когда вы осознаете сами себя, когда вы становитесь взрослым.
Well, remember a
Вспомните,
child
ребенка и
and an
взрослого
adult,
человека —
it's
это как
like
бы
two
два разных
different
существа.
beings.
Поэтому
Therefore,
иллюзия
illusions
появляется
manifest
в человеке
themselves
со
in a
временем.
person over time. But if
если
we
учесть,
consider
что
that there is almost no such thing in the child,
ребенке-то его,
there is very little of it.
ну, почти и нет, его очень, очень мало.
That is
Именно
why the
поэтому
knowledge we are talking
знания,
about
о
in
которых мы
children
говорим,
will give a powerful positive result much
в детях
faster.
будут давать мощный, позитивный результат гораздо быстрее.
It is much
Ребенка обучить
easier
чему-то
to teach a
этому
child something like
гораздо
this.
легче.
And
Я
in
в
my
своей
work, conversations,
работе
and lectures, I try to push this idea,
и
if you
беседах и
want,
лекциях
that we need to find a common
пытаюсь
language
повысить
with outer space in order to save our
и хотите
civilization.
продавить о том, что нам надо найти общий язык с внешним космосом для того, чтобы спасти свою цивилизацию.
And this
И
can be
это
done
можно
not
будет
through
сделать не
adults,
через
but
взрослых,
through
а
children.
через детей.
They are not
Они еще
so
не так
badly
сильно
crippled yet.
And the
искалечены.
internet. There's just such a broadcast. Every bitch goes, will fly. It seems to me that a lot of things are hanging
Мы сейчас
out.
с вами
We are not
не
discussing with you
обсуждаем,
now
сколько
how
всего
many
много
things
вокруг.
there are
Вам
around,
для этого и дана
and the
и
head
голова, и
and
материнские
maternal
чувства.
feelings, and the understanding that, in general, it is necessary to
Надо
guide the child.
руководить ребенком.
In
Вообще,
general, it should be good
добро
with
оно
teeth.
должно быть с зубами.
That's it?
Вот и всё. Вот
That's
вам и
the
ответ.
answer. If you
Если
are
вам
interested in a
интересен
child, get involved.
займитесь.
Try to isolate him from
Постарайтесь
any negative
изолировать его от
influence,
любого негативного
and give
влияния
him
и
the
дайте ему
maximum of
максимум
what will
того,
make him a
что сделает
person
этого
with a
человека
capital
большим
letter.
человеком.
You
У
have
вас
such an
такая возможность
opportunity.
есть.
It is
Она
provided to you
предоставлена
from the
от
Lord
Господа
God,
Бога, так
so
что
use it,
пользуйтесь, тем более
especially
вы
since you are a woman.
The second possibility.
Well, try it.
попробуйте.
Look, I recently came out, well, about 6 months ago, as in the structure. It is called the Order of the Demiologists Cosmites. I work with them. There is a lot of information going on. Then you somehow don't know what it is. Because there are a lot of names, as I understand it. They are such interesting
Ну,
guys.
возможно,
Well, maybe,
возможно,
I
не
don't
знаю.
know.
Я
No,
не ничего не
I
могу
couldn't
сказать,
say
я их не
anything.
знаю.
I don't know them.
Я
I
знаю,
know that's what
я
I do.
занимаюсь. Ну,
Just crossed, so we don't have.
No,
нет,
no.
нет,
Thank
нет,
you.
спасибо.
So, the third question. The pyramid has recently appeared so interesting with its head. It also works very clearly.
So higher. From whom?
I'm working with him and with people. When you work in screening, I also work very well. That is, you can work with a person without entering with him. How do you contact him? But you change the pyramid above his head at the top. I came out, I'm on top, and I'm on top. And a changeling person just reassembles the collection of personalities and allies, all incarnations, which how? They are reassembled into another form, and problems
Like this.
does not occur.
Why didn't you
Почему ты
meet?
встречался?
Met? Only you understand. Are you sure that you can interfere with a person's karma?
Yes, I'm looking. I'm looking into karma somehow. In your life, what is the task with one person to be a partner?
I see.
Yes, it can be seen that it was so. It became so. That is, it was visible to correct.
I think you have already formed an answer. Do you understand everything? There you go. I will not
Я не
hide it.
скрою.
I
Я
admire your
восхищаюсь
heroism
вашим
and
героизмом
yours, so to
и
speak.
вашей, так сказать, вот...
I came in.
Who?
Кто?
I don't know.
Люциус.
Lucius. Who? That.
Benefit. Okay, I suggest.
All
Ну
right,
хорошо,
all right.
ладно.
Technologically,
Технологически
you
можно
can do a
делать
lot.
очень многое.
A lot of
Очень
things.
многое. Но перед
But
тем,
before
как вы
you
это
do,
сделаете, подумайте,
think about what you are
во что вы
interfering with.
вмешиваетесь.
Do you understand
Это,
this? How
понимаете,
can I
как
tell
вам
you?
сказать, это как
It's like an attempt, I'll say it in the most general form, an
попытка,
attempt to create something
я пока
here
в
on
самой общей
earth,
форме
to
скажу вам,
change something.
попытка что-то здесь такое на Земле сотворить, что-то изменить.
At the same time, sometimes, well, we are ufologists
Иногда,
there.
ну вот
We
мы,
climb into some
исследователи,
abnormal zone.
психологи, мы лезем в какую-нибудь аномальную зону. И
That's why
вот
you're going there.
вопрос, зачем?
What do you
Зачем ты
want?
туда идешь?
You grow as you pass the levels. At each level, you have a task. You can't refuse. You climb it, went higher, came to the pyramid. For example, I am the highest I am over me. No one has worked with him yet.
A very interesting power. You work with the gods.
You take all the gods, and each god gives you levels. With him, there are Scandinavian gods, there are Egypt gods, there is the Karim region, so to speak, right? There are a lot of people there. That is, you take everything for work. Then you can somehow. The situation in the near future.
Well,
Ну,
if
если
you
вы
think you're influencing, then
думаете, что вы влияете, то
let them.
пусть.
Okay, fine. The fourth question.
In fact,
Вот вы
it feels
интересный.
like you're asking
Такое
a
ощущение,
question
что
just to ask
вы
it.
задаете вопрос только
I'm
для
just
того, чтобы его
curious to
задать.
me, because no one knows anything. No one ever answers anything. Are you talking to him?
No,
Почему,
why do you think
почему
that
вы
no
думаете,
one
что
knows,
никто
no
не
one
знает, никто не
answers?
отвечает?
These
Это,
are, in
на самом
fact,
деле,
very
очень
ancient
древние
technologies.
технологии,
Believe
поэтому
me,
они значительно
they are
эффективнее,
much more
чем то, что вы
effective
сейчас
than what you are
рассказываете.
telling now. But
Вот,
these are
но
technologies,
это
the use of which in a similar format,
технологии,
which you are talking about now, has
применение
become,
которых
if you like, the
в
reason for
подобном
making
формате,
decisions about the degradation of
о котором вы сейчас
civilization.
говорите, стали, если хотите, причиной принятия решений о деградации цивилизации.
Because
Вот
if
если
a
не
person
понимает,
does not
что он
understand
творит,
what he
куда
is doing and where he is flying, he doesn't understand. That's when a person is released for some
тогда
time, as it
человек
was done with our
отпускается какое-то
civilization,
время,
about
как это делалось
2,500
в
years.
цивилизации, где-то 2500 лет.
They
Они
look,
смотрят,
but if nothing changes
но
in
если за
2,500 years, they cover
ничего
it
не
with an
меняется,
asteroid.
накрывают астероидом.
A huge
Огромная
request:
просьба,
treat your
отнеситесь очень
children very
внимательно
carefully and start with them.
к своим детям и начните с них.
And then, this is my advice to you, interfere in the affairs of other adults. Remember that behind every adult there is something or someone who watches everything that you do.
Стоит нечто или некто, кто наблюдает за всем тем, что вы делаете.
I just want to reassure you that any influence on another person is carried out through the chronopoly, through the field of time, which is under very strict control of the relevant structures.
Any impact?
Any
Любое.
Stipend what?
stress, any energy action at a distance is implemented using the time field.
На расстоянии реализуется через поле времени.
The time field is under the strict control of certain structures. If your experiments do not provide or do not seem to have any serious danger, then do your
Не
experiments.
предоставляют или как бы не имеют никакой серьезной опасности, ну и занимайтесь вашими экспериментами.
Now,
Вот
if you
если вы
become a person with
становитесь
serious
человеком с
prospects,
серьезными
they will come to you.
перспективами, к вам придут они.
They will come to you, and your life will change in many ways, and your opinion will change. That is, I'm just
То есть я вам
telling
просто
you.
подсказываю.
It's coming, I know.
That's it. Well, here it is.
Ну что ж,
And today, the fourth question, can I ask you the last, the most interesting? This is literally a recent experiment. In other words, you look in the format of your own. What is happening? Yes, And I see that Zelensky is a separate planet altogether. I see like a planet. This has never happened before. Do you consider these completely different things? What is going on? How is it going? What do you imagine? Here he has formed a planet, something generated from what is happening. Here's the honey planet either coming, okay.
Yes.
There are slaves coming, and here's how to separate this.
And what?
И что?
And what?
И что?
And
И
what?
что?
Well, I sorted out, because, having seen, I called, I walked. Well, it's interesting. As pieces of everything that happens in the world, it's like, well, now I am. Here is such a planet formed, and it comes in here between people.
Honestly.
То есть
In
своим
other
вопросом
words, you are dragging us into this party with your question.
Just to see what it is.
Stop, stop, stop. No, no, no.
Знаете, вот смотрите,
You know, look,
просто
just
посмотреть.
look.
Yes, there is such a thing.
At one time, when I had the opportunity, it was many years ago, I
Это
asked
было
something
много лет
similar.
назад. Задал вопрос. Нечто подобное.
What do
Что
they
они
think about it?
думают по поводу...
It was
Это
a
был вопрос,
question
связанный
of
с
morality
властью
and
и
ethics
этикой
here on
здесь, на
Earth.
Земле.
So,
Так вот,
this very
этот
highly
очень
developed
высоко
person,
развитый
a
человек,
very highly developed
очень высоко
person,
развитый человек,
who at that time
которому
was
на тот
almost
момент было
8,000
почти
years
8
old,
тысяч лет от роду,
looked at me
посмотрел на
intently
меня
and said,
пристально
in order for me to
и
answer your
сказал,
question, I need to get down
для
to
того,
your
чтобы
level.
мне ответить на твой вопрос, мне нужно опуститься на твой уровень.
And then I will
И
answer.
тогда я отвечу.
But
Но
I would hate that
крайне
very
не
much,
хотел
I'm
извиниться.
sorry.
Do I mind?
Well,
Isn't it better from above?
that's what
Вот
we
мы с вами о
talked
чем
about
сегодня говорили?
today. The fact
том,
that
что
when there is
когда
an energy-informational
идет
interaction with them,
энергоинформационное
there
взаимодействие
was
с
such
ними,
an interesting experience.
было вот такой интересный опыт.
We met.
Встретились
The meeting
Встреча
is
происходит.
happening. He looks into my eyes and says,
в глаза
"Where did you
и
get
говорит,
these
откуда у
signs?"
тебя эти знаки?
I say,
Я
"What
говорю, какие
signs?"
знаки там?
Question,
Вопрос, а
"And
что
what
за
are the
знаки?
signs?"
Он говорит,
I
я говорит,
read the
читаю в
signs of
твоем
Entraki in your
сознании
mind.
знаки Энтраки.
I was so excited. I say,
оживился.
"What are the signs of
Какие знаки
Entraki?
Энтраки?
What the
Что за
hell?"
фигня?
This is the
Первое
first
такое
time
слово
I've heard
знакомое.
such an obscene word.
Он
He
тут же
immediately
проецирует
projects a
сознание
series of signs in my
серию
mind,
знаков. И я их
and I
узнаю.
recognize them.
Что это за
What
знаки?
are these signs?
А я
Oh,
говорю,
yes,
да,
I
помню.
remember.
Было
There
такое,
was
и я
such a
объясняю, в
thing,
какой ситуации
and I explain in what situation I
Первый
saw
знак,
the
первую
first
серию
series of
знаков.
signs. Here they are. This is the
Вот это-
civilizational key of
Это
the universe.
цивилизационный ключ Вселенной.
If you answer the
Если вы
question, what is
ответите
it?
на вопрос, что
The
это
girl
такое,
also concerns you.
вот девушка
Then let's
касается,
talk about the
тогда
future.
поговорим об
In
этом.
short,
Короче говоря,
I will not decipher it.
расшифровывать не буду.
I can take a look.
No.
Нет,
I need to go through the source.
затем
Then
там
there's a
второй
second
знак.
sign,
Идет
a
вторая
second
серия
series
знаков.
of signs. I ask,
спрашиваю, а
and
что
what is
такое?
this? And he
Он
says,
говорит,
tell me, what was
Скажи
the
мне, а о
person
чем ты
thinking
думал?
at that
В чем в тот
moment?
момент?
I say, no,
Я
I
говорю,
don't
не
know.
знаю.
And which half of the
А
brain
в
did
какую
this
половину
information
мозга
go
зашла
into,
эта
the right or the
информация,
left?
вправо или левую? Я
I
говорю, я не
say,
знаю,
yes,
тогда я не
I do
смогу
not know.
ответить.
Then I will not be able to answer exactly.
Понимаете?
Do you understand?
Речь
It's
идет
not just
не
about
просто о
transmitting
передаче
information.
информации.
We are
Речь
talking about
идет
energy
о
interaction.
энергетическом взаимодействии.
The energy that
Энергия,
penetrates into
которая
you, or you
проникает в вас,
penetrate into
или
this
вы
energy, into this
проникаете в
person,
эту энергию,
and whether you want
в
it or
этого
not.
человека.
In
И
order
хотите
to
вы, не
understand
хотите,
him, you
для
have
того,
to
чтобы его
start
понять,
vibrating
вы
with
должны
him,
начать
with his
вибрировать с
frequency.
ним, с его частотой.
Right?
Правильно?
And now,
теперь
purely
чисто
for the
для-
answer.
Для ответа.
So come home
Вот
today,
придите сегодня домой,
put on the Apocalypse movie,
поставьте фильм
and at the end of the
«Апокалипсис»,
movie, tell yourself, now
а в
I'm
конце
going to
фильма
tune
скажите
in.
себе,
And try to
сейчас вот я
understand the
настроюсь и
thoughts of these
попробую
people
понять
who killed people
мысли
there by the
этих вот
hundreds of thousands a
людей,
day.
которые там сотнями тысяч в день убивали людей.
Do you
Хотите
want to try
попробовать?
it? I think
Я
you will
думаю, вы
catch
такую
such energy that
зацепите
just hold on.
энергию, что только
After that,
держись.
you will be
После этого вы
cleansed of
еще
all this
5
for
лет
another
жизни
5
будете
or
очищать
6
всего этого.
lifetimes. They have a
У них
very clear
в этом
understanding
смысле
in this
очень
sense,
четкое
and
понимание.
not
Они
specific people.
конкретные люди.
Therefore, they don't go into
На
such
своем
things at their
уровне
level.
не суются в такие вещи.
Look here, we are having conversations with you. You vibrate on reading the stars. You are going, and I vibrate on reading books that ask you questions. Here is a book from outer space came. It asks you questions. We are talking to you in the format of a question.
Я
I
не
don't feel
чувствую
any book of the
какой-то
cosmos.
космоса,
There is no flow on me.
никакого
Do you
потока на
understand?
мне.
I'm
Я
just.
просто- я вот
I look at
смотрю
you
на
and
вас
I
и
understand
понимаю, что
that in
возможно,
many ways a beautiful,
красивая, молодая,
young,
милая
sweet woman
женщина
is very
сильно
wrong about
ошибается
some
в
things.
таких вещах.
I want to
Хочется
help,
помочь,
but I
но
understand
понимаю, не
I
могу.
can't. I can't help
могу
it.
помочь.
Something has
Что-то
somehow
вас
pre-arrayed
как-то
you.
так прет.
Because you have a direction going there a little bit, and I have a direction going there.
There.
Вопрос, туда
Where
или
is this
куда?
going?
don't look at the 100th. You move based on your knowledge, which is sewn up for you here, and this is a kind of construction. In other words, you are like a kind of machine that has generated knowledge in itself, which includes,
I'm not.
Я нет.
Gear.
Смотрите,
so to speak.
What's your name again? Lenonenko. Look, there are too many words. You are a machine. Knowledge is generated. And I'm asking. I understand that words carry a tremendous amount of information. What does a car mean? What does knowledge generated mean? This is knowledge. This is very ancient knowledge. I didn't generate them.
Here they are, ancient knowledge. In other words, you have collected the knowledge of all the gods. They have joined you, and you have emphasized the allies of your past incarnation. They have formed a pyramid of your color, which works in this format for you. You take it. You have a very strong pain. You have salt. I'm there too. I don't know what you don't know. That's why I want to complete myself. Therefore, I use the book of knowledge and ask the questions of your book, which are formed in the plan.
Yes, I see. Well, you have a long way to go.
I agree.
Yes, it will not always be simple, but as they say.
We don't have a very simple way for anyone. That who's got a brain spinning.
Yes, of course.
Only someone who won't be there at all.
Yes, I advise you. There is a book of wisdom, an ancient Egyptian. I advise you to read it. There are very wise thoughts there. One of the thoughts says that he is wise. Truly wise is he who listens to the advice of others. So read it.
Good.
Well, yes, if there is no rod. And the question is not mine. I delegate it, as it were. There's a friend of ours there. He's his. He had a question like this, like we have now in this world, the question of good and evil. As they say, in whose individuality is this question, and everyone says that I have good so, evil so. And this is a question of diversity. What would you say? And I'll tell him about it then. The answer is exactly that. How to find where the true evil is, where the good is. Because, let's say there is one event, and everyone looks at it from a different position of good and evil. Well, as it is, actually the question is, yes, that's the question. The question is this, and it will, yes, because, at least if you can. Look, here is true evil, as true good, I think, does not exist. This is the first thing. Everything is determined by the level of understanding of the process, because for someone, as I said today, for example, 15,000 years ago, the process of degradation of civilization was included. You know, some guys come from outer space, who surpass us in terms of development, in general on the order. They make decisions and say, let's degrade you. Insults, yes, yes. Would you agree? Clearly, the negative is rushing. And that's what happens. We begin to make up our ideas, to form a certain field of negativity, while it turns out, this degradation process actually carries a lot of positivity for humanity.
Этот деградационный процесс на самом деле несет для человечества массу позитива.
And everything is determined only by the level of understanding. Therefore, answering this question, if globally, then this is a very difficult question, and it is necessary to consider each item separately. While there are simple things like, for example, take to decorate these pockets with money. Bad, and definitely bad. But if we raise evolutionary questions, we need to look at. As you understand, it's like in life. For example, for some people, like in my life, such events suddenly come. We sometimes discuss the same thing. Suddenly, everything completely breaks down life. Just completely everything that was, and there is nothing left of the previous life. Right? But it would seem that everything is completely negative, just a complete break. But if you look at the situation, then, and what happened? What happened is that now I can spend 95% of my time working. Now I'm free to do what I can do. While being in a different situation, I had 5% of the time with all these twists and turns and so on. So is it a negative or a positive? To learn positively, but not to develop negatively. This is probably a negative for us after all. If I didn't answer the question, I'm sorry, but this is a very difficult answer. I understand. It was necessary to convey specifically his question was related. With what? With a certain situation. Then we need a situation. Yes, then we need to look at the situation. Here. It started with on the globe. No, no, no. Because really.
It's all for the best.
Well, then let's go through the pyramids. After all, according to the pyramids. Yes.
Seriously.
Guys, a huge request. I can't hear anything. I can't hear anything.
We said that during the development of the situation here on Earth, there was such a moment that a certain decision was made regarding your planet, civilization. Is there such a thing today? Do you have any information that some kind of solution is another similar one today?
I have already hinted at this question today. Look, we really had at least 3 long cycles allotted to us. These cycles ended with the fall of large asteroids. We still did not solve the main issue. But now we have entered a very special historical period, where on the one hand we have to make a decision and do certain things. But at the same time, we find ourselves in a hopeless situation from the very beginning.
И совершить определенные поступки, но при этом мы с вами оказываемся изначально в безвыходном положении.
Let's look at the situation with what is happening today between Russia and America, for example, in general. In other words, you see, no matter what agreement we make, no matter what action we do with the best intentions, it will be defiled and overturned. That is, we, proceeding from the best human qualities, keeping our word, want to build our relationship on a positive basis. And in return,
Хотим построить наши взаимоотношения на позитивной основе, а в ответ
in other words, this means that you and I will definitely lose. You understand, right? We're going to lose. In this case, outer space has come, and the pyramidal object hangs first over Moscow at 4 o'clock in the morning, right? Remember? It's the end of the 9th year. Before that, Bibi was a modest man, so gentle.
Fluffy.
Fluffy, yes. And remember, in February, it's already 2000 of the 10th year, if that's all. He said, in short, the boys in the world. Listen here, and this movement begins. Then a few months later, this object appears over Beijing, and then over Washington. This means that the outsiders decided to intervene and deal with the Americans according to the full scheme, because they include not only seismic weapons. The strike on Turkey is a seismic weapon, and these are, believe me, flowers. When? It's all Fukushima below, but these are flowers. You understand, these are all flowers. In the near future, when they announce the withdrawal of the last American soldier from Iraq, get ready, they cocked the trigger. There will be a seismic blow to the Middle East in general. These are Iran, Iraq, Syria, Palestine. It's all there. It will be millions of lives. After that, the negotiations will begin.
And about Stalin at the same time.
And this will entail not only the death of a large number of people, but also the beginning of serious seismic changes. For example, Myanmar will begin to go underwater. Do you understand the scale? Already the influence is not just on civilization, but already on Mother Earth. They have been doing research for a long time, and they have laboratories in California on psychotronic weapons. And this field, this is the new sphere.
In Ukraine.
This is serious. In short, now they are just waiting. And if this happens, what I have just said, it will most likely happen, because I even found a small text on this topic in the Quran.
На эту тему я даже нашел небольшой
I was
текст
extremely
в
surprised,
Коране.
but it
Я был
turns
крайне
out that it is
удивлен, но
already predicted
оказывается,
in the
он уже был
Quran.
сказан в Коране.
I think
Думаю,
it's
как
interesting.
интересно. Ладно,
Okay,
посмотрим.
let's see. Already the
Уже
physical destruction of
физическое
America, only
уничтожение
not by our
Америки,
forces,
только
and
уже
not
не
by your
нашими и не
forces,
вашими
but
силами,
by
а силами
forces of a
совершенно другого
completely different
порядка.
order. In other
То есть, как
words,
видите,
as you
они
can see,
вмешиваются в тот
they
момент,
intervene at a time
когда
when,
по
for
объективным
objective
причинам
reasons,
добро
good
не
cannot
может
defeat
победить
evil,
зло.
because it's
Потому что оно
just
просто
good,
добро.
and the
А
good,
добро
as it
как бы
were, is always vulnerable.
всегда уязвимо.
In general,
But if the pyramid was hanging over America there, that they have no reason to disappear there at all.
are you asking me?
Вы у меня спрашиваете?
No, no, I'm just. I don't understand at all what kind of creatures are there.
Believe me, I drove through America by
Поверьте, что я
car.
Америку
I love
проехал на
America.
машине, и я
I love
люблю
the people.
Америку, я
They
люблю
are the
народ,
same
он
as us,
такой же, как и мы,
simple,
простой,
in the
в
outback.
глубинке.
Russian. But
А
2
вот
square
2
kilometers in
километра
Washington, D.C.
Вашингтон,
is Mom, do not
это
grieve.
мама не горюй.
Yes.
This is
Это
where
вот
fire-breathing
тут нужны
tools are needed.
огнедышащие инструменты.
Can I? Yes.
Valery, what we said many people live, have gone through a lot of teachings, currents, movements, and so on, considering that all this was under a good fist, and there to nag for you. Here, we'll talk. We went through before the plan. As you can say, certain diseases arise after studying how to clean yourself from this and from being tied to it, and as much as possible, as you say.
What should be done practically? Well, look, it so happened
Так
that I have been
сложилось,
studying
что
this question, in fact, since the 95th year a lot.
этот вопрос я, по сути дела, изучаю, начиная с 95-го года, плотненько.
If you just
Если
drop
просто
me,
отбросить меня,
okay,
вот давайте
let's
просто
just drop
отбросим
it.
вот
There is information translated into understandable Russian scientific language
переведенное на
related to
понятный
the caduceus of
русский
Horus,
научный язык,
Canham,
имеющий
and the
отношение к
pyramids.
Цуцеям гора, Канхам и пирамидам.
Take it
Вот
and,
берите
most
и, главное,
importantly,
бескомпромиссно
implement it uncompromisingly,
реализуйте,
and you
и
will get the
очень
result
быстро
very
вы
quickly,
получите результат.
very fast,
Очень быстро.
only uncompromisingly. As a
Только
person who builds
бескомпромиссно.
pyramids, I am
Я, как
constantly
человек,
faced
который
with
строит
this.
пирамиды, я
I
постоянно
say,
с этим
guys,
сталкиваюсь.
we need to build this
Говорят,
way,
надо
this
строить
way,
так,
and
так и
that.
так.
They will
И там
count there.
посчитают, а
Listen,
может, вот тут
but maybe we will do it
начать,
differently
а вот
here.
тут начать.
And maybe we'll do it here
А
now.
вот тут из картона,
Or maybe it's
ну,
made of
тогда не
cardboard.
получится ничего.
Then nothing will work.
Надо либо так, либо
It's
так.
either that or nothing.
And there are pyramids somewhere in which it would be possible to include, somehow to cooperate. Well, I mean, in our territory.
No, they are,
Они
of
есть,
course.
конечно.
They are
Они
there.
есть.
Is it possible to access them? Well, if.
Then I'll
Тогда
ask
я
you a
задам
question.
вопрос.
I'm going to
Я вам
ask
задам
you an
честный
honest
вопрос.
question.
Ответьте
Answer
мне
it
на него
honestly.
честно.
And why do
А
you need it?
зачем вам это?
What do you
Что вы
want?
хотите?
What do I want?
Yes.
Да.
I want to understand myself after all.
To do this,
Для
you can
этого можно
understand
понять
it in another
другим
way.
путем.
Believe that for
Поверьте,
this.
что для этого
Yes, I've already tried. It's
я
somehow.
сегодня,
Today,
вот
I
сегодня,
read to you
я
the
вам
ancient
читал
Mayan text
древнемаянские
translated
переведенные на
into
русский язык
Russian,
тексты,
where they say,
где они говорят,
people, the
людей
crowd, were not
толпу
allowed.
не допускали.
I
Я
don't
не
want
хочу
to
вас
offend
обидеть.
you. They didn't
Они
allow
не
it.
допускали.
Why?
Почему? А
But
потому
because.
что вы-
Am
вот
I leading
я
you
вас
to
веду к
what?
чему?
Try
Попробуйте
to
понять,
understand what
что
they
они
mean
имеют в
when
виду,
they say that
когда
if it's
говорят,
here
что
to give this
если
knowledge
это
will
вот
kill humanity.
отдать, это знание убьет человечество.
I understand what you're
понимаю, о
talking
чем идет
about.
речь.
So I
Поэтому
ask
я
the
задам вопрос, а
question,
вы
do
понимаете,
you understand why you
зачем
need
вам
this?
это?
What do you
Что вы
want?
хотите?
You want a
Вы же
miracle.
хотите чудо.
Well, admit it, a
Ну,
miracle.
признайтесь, чудо.
And the
А
text
текст
says,
говорит, горе
woe to the
тому,
one who
кто
wants to
хочет
see a
узреть
miracle,
чудо,
because
ибо
his
путь
path
его
leads
ведет
into the
в
abyss.
пропасть.
Opanki.
Опаньки.
So,
Ну,
are
так
we
что,
going to
будем
experiment?
экспериментировать?
Or maybe a
Или
little.
всё-таки немножко
I don't understand the miracle.
Why would she?
I don't need anything. I understand.
Stop, 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 stop. And what do you
А что вы
want?
хотите?
Then
Ответьте, а
answer,
что вы
and what do you
хотите?
want?
Я хочу зайти в
I want to
пирамиду,
go into the
чтобы
pyramid,
что?
so that what?
Well, put your brains in their place.
In order to
Для того,
put the
чтобы
brains in
поставить мозги
place,
на место,
you can
можно
put
и
them
без
in
пирамиды
place without a
поставить на место.
pyramid. We need to have more of them. A very powerful statement. In fact, it is very powerful. Therefore, When a question
Поэтому,
is
когда ко
asked
мне
to
задают
me,
вопрос,
help me choose
там,
the same
помогите
tool as
выбрать
Igor's
инструмент, те же
kadutsi,
самые кудуцы и
I'm
иглы.
asking a
Я задаю
question, a
вопрос,
goal.
цель.
What is your goal?
Какую цель вы ставите?
What do you
Что вы
want to
хотите
get
от них
from them?
получить?
And
И когда
when?
вы сформируете,
If
если вы
you
не
formulate a goal
сформулируете
for
цель,
me, I will tell you
я
what the
скажу вам,
caduceus should be,
какие должны
or
быть
whenever a customer comes to
кудуцы,
me and says,
либо
I want to build a
всегда, когда
pyramid.
ко мне приходит заказчик и говорит, я хочу построить пирамиду.
Question.
Вопрос,
Why?
зачем?
What do you want
Что
to
вы
get
от
from
нее
her?
хотите получить?
But if you
Вот
formulate it
если вы
to
мне
me, the
сформулируете,
question is not about
вопрос не в
money.
деньгах.
Formulate it.
Сформулируйте.
And if
И
I
если
see
я
that you
увижу, что вы
understand what you are
понимаете,
talking
о чем
about,
вы,
we will do.
будем делать.
As in
Как
Tomsk,
в Томске,
when a person
когда человек
came
ко
to
мне
me
приехал
and
и
said,
говорит, вот я
Here I have
посмотрел,
looked, read everything that you are doing.
посчитал все, что вы
I want
делаете,
to invite you to participate in the
хочу
next
предложить
case.
вам поучаствовать вот в следующем
In
деле. В
Tomsk.
Томске
This is a big
это
city,
большой город,
almost a
почти
million
миллион
people live
человек
there.
живет.
And there, he
И там,
says,
говорит, у нас
we have a
большой
large
студенческий
student campus
кампус,
of
200 тысяч, иногда
200,000,
300 тысяч
sometimes
человек. А можно
300,000
что-нибудь вот
people.
такое придумать,
And you can
чтобы
come up with something like this to stimulate their
простимулировать их
creative activity.
творческую активность.
I say work,
говорю.
work.
Работаем. Работаем.
That's right.
Это да.
That's the goal.
Это
I
цель.
agree.
Согласен.
We will stimulate
Простимулируем,
it.
с удовольствием
We will do it
сделаем.
with pleasure.
Понятно, что будем
It is
делать?
clear what we will do. So if you
Так что, если
formulate it,
сформулируете,
I will give you an
я дам вам
answer.
ответ.
This is, if I may say so, probably a goldfish. It is necessary to clearly, specifically say the question.
Then it will be.
In response,
Ответ?
yes.
Да.
If something is wrong, like in this joke about a Negro who wanted to be white,
негра, который хотел быть белым.
lots of water and lots of women, he just turned into a white toilet in the women's toilet.
Белый унитаз.
Women, they say, take away their desires.
Yes. Well, yes, I have everything right. Everything is right. Valera, well, just like a fish answers. Therefore, he is afraid of mutating.
There is also a gold one.
Yeah, look, come on, come on. Valera. And then directly closing the chip, for example, structuring the pyramid field, the drugs have a pronounced anti-cancer effect. A water-based drug for the treatment and structuring of water. As I understand it, the pyramids were created according to information and ether energy principles, that is, the ethereal field. The effect of the pyramid field, and not only the field, but, let's say, ethereal technologies about what Yaroslav Staruk is talking about in the global wave are shooting bullshit. These pyramid technologies that you are using right now, let's say you know some effects that arise as a result of the impact of this structure. They were given to previous civilizations that died, maybe as a result of some cataclysms.
Они были даны, предыдущим цивилизациям, которые погибли, может быть, в результате каких-то катаклизмов.
Let's not say such things. In the Mahabharata, these are nuclear wars.
Ядерные войны.
So it was floods and a 5-kilometer wave.
Пятикилометровая волна.
The main thing, these technologies, let's just say they were closed for our current civilization on purpose. Or we will have a return to these ethereal technologies, that is, they will expand. We will switch to the old type of energy that we used before us, but more environmentally friendly. I'll try to
Попробую
answer.
ответить. Смотри.
I mean, did they shut down these technologies then, or did they just turn out to be? Civilizations have gone, and technologies have simply been lost in time. And now there is a refund. Will there be development as a forecast? Or it will, so to speak, remain at the level of such sacred knowledge for a very narrow image of people? And what?
Ну что?
Any
Есть
answers?
ответ?
Is there?
Есть?
Yes.
Look,
Смотрите,
the first
первое.
one is technologies
Технологии,
related to
касающиеся
pyramids.
пирамид.
I wouldn't
Я
call
бы
them
не назвал
ethereal.
их эфирными.
This is
Это
quite a
вполне себе
physical
физические
technology.
технологии.
Now,
Теперь,
when we
когда
talk
мы
about
говорим
those
о тех
technologies
технологиях,
that we
которые
inherited
мы
out of the
получили
greatest love for humanity
по наследству
by our Anunnaki
из
ancestors,
величайшей любви к человечеству нашими предками, анунаками,
I also
я еще
emphasize
подчеркиваю,
that
это
these are our
наши
blood
кровные
ancestors.
предки.
So look,
Так вот,
they
смотрите,
received this
они
knowledge from the
получают
hands of a highly developed
Это
civilization.
знание из рук высочайшим образом развитой цивилизации.
This is a civilization, for example, of the planet Eden, aka Mars. Look, these technologies, they appeared in the civilization of Mars, on the one hand, thanks to a man whom we call Lucius, who has passed a long way of his development. The thing is that the technologies that are embodied in the caduceus, the ant, and the pyramid are not only invented, not only suffered. They have been tested for thousands of years. And they gave such a stunningly effective result that when the war of the gods ended and here in the solar system on Earth, it was necessary to somehow adjust the situation, taking into account the genetics of humanity where these technologies can shoot, so that in 25, 30, 40, a maximum of 100 years, another civilization of Phaeton and Mars, with all the resulting magnificent, they are beginning to close these technologies. That is, people and knowledge are being cut out. How are they cut out? Not one by one, but immediately an asteroid bang. And pyramid complexes are being covered, civilizations are being erased, and so on. Because in the face of the future and the solar system, which is part of the galaxy, your, by the way, Slavichka, genetic abilities are such a serious thing that they don't play games there. They prefer to put a cross right away. Here. They do not withdraw knowledge. They are, as it were, muted or something. Knowledge was and is. The knowledge that we are discussing with you now is the knowledge with which the evolution of any civilization begins. That is why we will find pyramids on any planet, any solar system. Through the pyramids, the interaction of the most remote areas under the space of the universe takes place. Therefore, these are physical technologies that are very effective, despite the fact that they are extremely primitive. Pyramid is a very primitive technology, but it is very effective. Therefore, going back and superimposing on your question, just if you understand, take it and use it. Now, as for nuclear explosions and so on. Very often there are ideas on television that our civilization had super technologies relatively recently. There were nuclear explosions. Nuclear bombs, in general, they fought according to the full scheme. We have never been at war, and none according to the full scheme. A very long time ago, a complex was built on Earth by interested parties to reflect asteroid and meteorite hazards. This complex is a technical complex, partially represented in our dimension. The main part of it is located in a parallel dimension. It destroys a certain object. As a rule, 95 to 98% are meteorites carrying dangerous bacteria. With help, I call it the Terminator. This is a kind of object that is pumped up by a powerful electromagnetic field. So, the explosion of one Terminator is equal in power to 2,500 bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's exactly the discharge of such a Terminator leaves a radioactive trace. And with the tektites, with all these things, and the Makin of Jadara was destroyed in the same way. Tunguska is, Vidum meteorite is, Chelyabinsk meteorite is exactly that. Everything works exactly this installation. And it is she who is referred to as a Brahmastra in the Vedic texts. The Chinese found this trunk. They have been carefully picking it up and studying it since 2004 year. They came to my conference in Sydney when I was speaking. About 30 people arrived in special suits, wearing black glasses. Hilarious. Hilarious. Exactly the same officers sat down. Everyone came just for my conference. Me, my performance. Then they stood up. Before we got up, I said to them, "Guys, it's very nice to see you here, but I know very well why you are here. We follow your work. Here,
They also penetrated.
With regard to
Что касается
Lhasa,
Лхасы,
do you
помнишь,
remember
там
that big
такой
palace there
большой
in
дворец
Lhasa?
в Лхасе?
Here he covers
Вот
the
он
entrance to the
накрывает
system
вход в
where
систему, где находится
Brahmasev is
Брахма.
located. And this is what they are.
Это они
They
и
are.
есть, они и есть.
It's them.
Это они. Но
But the
видишь,
Willis
котлы
boilers
это-
are.
что такое
What is a
котлы?
boiler?
Это
It's a
разрушенный,
ruined terminator.
терминатор.
The thing is
Дело в том,
that during
что-
the Tunguska explosion,
Во время Тунгусского
look,
взрыва.
it all happened
Смотрите,
around 8
всё
o'clock
произошло
in the
около
morning,
8
if you
часов утра,
remember,
вы помните,
very,
очень
very early.
рано.
The
Объекты
objects were
выводились
displayed
в
in
разных
different
местах.
places. They rose
Они
from the
из
trunks,
стволов
then
поднимались,
slowly flew
потом
to a certain
медленно
point where the
летели
last
к определенной
reconnaissance
точке,
was carried out.
где осуществлялась последняя рекогностировка.
I say that it so happened
Так
that,
сложилось,
thank
что, слава
God,
Богу, у меня есть
I have a video of how
того,
it
как это
works.
работает.
So today,
сегодня
it is
можно
possible to
полностью
completely
восстановить
restore the
картину.
picture. A few words
Несколько
about the
слов о
genius of those who came up with all
гении
this.
тех, кто придумал всё это.
They were
Это
absolutely
были
brilliant people.
гениальные люди, абсолютно.
When they learned
Когда
about
они
the
узнали о
existence of a
существовании
factor
фактора,
associated with the passage of an
прохождением
asteroid stream,
астероидного потока,
they decide to create a complex
они
to
принимают
protect
решение
both planet
о
Earth
создании
and the solar
комплекса по
system from
защите
this scourge.
и планеты Земля, и Солнечной системы от этой вот напасти.
Let's talk
Будем
about
говорить о
planet
планете
Earth.
Земля.
This is a physical
физический
object.
объект.
It is also in
Он
our
находится
dimension.
и в нашем измерении.
There is a place, found a
найдено
place
место,
where there
где
is
происходит
charging,
зарядка
but the balloons.
вот этих вот шаров.
An object flies
Туда
up there.
подлетает
It
объект,
was
это
observed,
наблюдали,
sneaks up
подлетает
and
и
throws it,
бросает.
as it
Как
were.
бы,
Interestingly,
естественно,
it's
это
like a
как
round
озеро,
lake,
круглое озеро, и
and
туда
they
просто они
just drop
опускают
these
эти
balls
шары
there,
туда.
and they
Они
charge them with a
заряжают
certain
с
frequency.
определенной периодичностью.
Then,
Затем,
when a
когда
meteorite or
метеорит
asteroid
или
appears
астероид
somewhere out
появляется
there, on the distant
где-то
approaches,
там, на далеких подступах,
the installation
установка
reacts,
реагирует.
but
Но
how?
как?
In order to
Для
scan
того, чтобы
space, they do not
сканировать
use
пространство,
electromagnetic
они
fields.
не используют электромагнитных полей.
They use the
Они
aura of the
используют
Earth.
ауру Земли.
She's a living
Она же
organism.
живой организм.
Do you understand?
Вот как,
As you
как
approach a person,
человек, вот ты
take a
подходишь к
needle
человеку,
and
бери
scare him
иголку,
like
так,
that.
напугай его.
The
Сейчас
body will react.
тело среагирует.
The planet reacts the
Планета
same
точно так же
way.
реагирует.
As soon as
Как
the
только
object
вошел объект
entered there,
туда,
the
аура
aura
моментально
instantly
фиксирует,
fixes, and this is still
а это
months
еще
of
месяцы
flight.
полета.
And instantly
И
the
моментально
signal
сигнал
arrives here
поступает
on
сюда, на
Earth
Землю.
that everything, the object, has entered. Tunguska explosion. As you remember, 3 months before the explosion, local shamans began to walk around and warn that it was necessary to leave these places because the heavenly god Agda will descend and there will be a big shu in here. Who heard? He left. The installation started generating these objects here. Going, that's where it's very important.
Тут очень важно.
The energy that the Terminator is pumped with is the energy of the Earth.
Это энергия Земли.
These are seismic processes. Everything connected with the electromagnetism of the Earth is pumped up, then the mine opens.
Затем открывается шахта.
It's all
Это
spelled
всё
out.
прописано.
And a few minutes before the event, these objects come out of the mines,
До события эти объекты выходят из шахт.
where this installation is strong enough in its power,
Эта установка достаточно сильна по своей мощности.
where the
Там, где
permeability of the
проницаемость
energy membranes allows,
мембран
the
энергетических
object is
позволяет,
derived from a
вывод
parallel measurement
объекта
of the Earth.
осуществляется из параллельного измерения Земли.
That is,
То есть
an
появляется
energy beam
энергетический
appears,
луч,
and
и
then
потом
somewhere in the
где-то
middle of
в
it,
его середине
a
так,
ball
и
appears and
появляется
went.
шар и пошел.
And if the
И если
installation in this
установка в
place
этом
is weak,
месте
there is a
слаба,
physical mine.
находится физическая шахта.
Physical.
Физическая.
It opens.
Она
This
открывается,
Terminator comes from there.
оттуда поступает
Lightning.
этот
There is light,
терминатор,
the most powerful
молнии,
electromagnetic
там, свет,
radiation.
мощнейшее электромагнитное
He
излучение.
falls out with a
Он с
bang,
грохотом
went,
вываливается,
rose to a certain
пошел,
height,
поднялся на
and
определенную
movement
высоту,
begins.
и начинается
They
движение.
converge to a
Они
certain point,
сходятся к
which
определенной
was
точке,
observed.
что и наблюдалось.
You remember the
Помнишь, что
Tunguska
взрыв?
explosion. Then,
Затем,
somewhere a few
где-то
minutes
за
before the
несколько
moment
минут
they get up,
до момента
and
они
this is the
встают.
last shooting.
И это последняя пристрелка.
Then, what
Затем
happens?
что происходит?
It's the
Это
same
одна
scheme.
и та же схема.
Moreover,
Причем
I do not have a video
У
on the
меня нет
Chelyabinsk
видео
event,
по
but I do
Челябинскому
have videos
событию, у
on
меня есть
other
видео по
events.
другим событиям.
One of the
Один из
Terminators from
терминаторов
above.
Сверху
I am now
Я сейчас
describing the
описываю
Tunguska event.
Тунгусское событие.
It starts to
Начинает
go down,
опускаться
and at
вниз.
some point it
И
slows
в какой-то
down,
момент он
and then it
тормозится.
opens.
И затем раскрывается.
But what does it
Ну,
mean?
что это значит?
There is a powerful
Происходит
whipping lightning
мощный,
strike, and a serial
хлесткий
such jinderly.
Удар молнии, причем сильный такой.
And at this time, he forms a kind of cross. This shooting
Этот телец
gallery
превращается в
turns
крест.
into a cross. I remind you, the Sosovsky explosion.
Сасовский взрыв.
The same technology is applied. And at this
И в
moment,
этот момент
as it were,
как бы
a hole
открывается
opens into
отверстие в
subspace.
подпространство.
In this
В
place,
этом
as
месте,
all
о
the
чем
eyewitnesses tell us,
все очевидцы и
stones, trees,
рассказывают,
and water
из земли
begin to
в эту
fly
трубу,
from the
как
ground
в
into this
пылесос.
pipe, like into a
Начинают лететь
vacuum cleaner.
камни, деревья,
The animal
вода,
was in the same
животное
place.
оказалось
That
туда
is,
же.
the
То есть
hickey went at that
засос
moment.
пошел в этот момент.
That is,
То есть он
he opened up.
раскрылся,
And from the
а
side,
сбоку,
in
в
this
данном
case,
случае,
since
мы
we are
говорим
talking
о
about the
Тунгусском
Tunguska
событии,
event,
с деревни
another Terminator flies
такой
out from the village of Moga
полукругом,
with such a semicircle, like in a billiard game, and just when he comes to this place, he is already flying, everything. Seconds, here he cuts the sky with a smoky tail, he sort of corrects it there, drives it, right into this hole, and the hole closes. Eyewitnesses say, hop, here it went smoky, and suddenly once translucent. And the smoke is translucent. There is no object. He went under the intermediate dimension, but we will see it due to the structure of the eye. And it flies another 150 kilometers. Kulikovsky brought out the choice, and there are already waiting for these Terminators. All the eyewitnesses tell about them. There are dozens of them. And when he opens the space, as they describe, the sky seems to have opened, split. That's it. And at this time, these Terminators take off, and this shooting begins. Eyewitnesses say the first explosion, as they write, and it was morning, at 8 in the morning. They say the sky has opened. And what does the sky mean? They saw a starry sky in the sky. That is, a hole was formed in the membrane. That is, space. And another attempt to board up the object there. That is, it is broken. Yet, the researchers of the Tunguska explosion say there was no meteorite, it was a comet, because no meteoritic substance was found. Sorry. Tons of meteoritic matter have been found. Silicate and magnetite balls are what is left of the Terminators and of the meteorite of the lowest dangerous bacteria. In other words, a powerful energy release is a nuclear explosion. Colossal temperatures. The meteorite melts like shrapnel, cuts down all the trees, everything around. The explosion in the neighborhood is falling. After Kulikovo Vival, they didn't finish him off. He flies on again, falls into the ground. And then there are eyewitnesses again. This Terminator from above sharply hits the ground, and the explosion leaves a funnel 200 meters in diameter, 200 meters in diameter, and 20 meters deep. It was this explosion that caused a seismic wave that circled the Earth almost 3 times. That's what's going on. That's how they destroy the whole thing. Absolutely unique technology. Of course, there are traces. There are a lot of these traces. Therefore, it was this attitude that she played, still plays, will play some role in the fate of our civilization for some time. Today, I mentioned that the angle of precession is changing. It seems to be decreasing. This leads to a change in cyclicity. All the power plants, not only the pyramids, but also this complex, are tied to this very important parameter of the Earth, to cyclicity. That is, in about 30 or 40 years, both the pyramids of Cheops and these installations will fall silent. They'll stop shooting. Now we are going to observe with you, due to the system's exit from this energy balance of recharge. We are already observing blank shots. That is, she suddenly shoots an object, but there is nothing. Therefore, he flew, as was the case with Tunguska. They knocked off a meteorite in the morning, and in the evening, these Terminators were still flying. Why? They scanned the space for remnants, and if they didn't find anything, he immediately fell either into the ground, or somewhere in a swamp, or somewhere in a lake, that is. He self-destructed. Therefore, Elsu is the wreckage of these Terminators. I've been there, climbed in those places. So, accordingly, this is such a system. And when we say that unpleasant events related to the fall of a large asteroid are waiting for us in the future, we have a chance to use this technology. Nobody
никто же
canceled
ее
it.
не отменял.
Another thing
Другое дело,
is
что
that we will have
нам
to somehow
придется
learn how to
как-то
use it.
научиться ей пользоваться.
God rest his soul,
Царство ему
Colonel
небесное,
General
генерал
Gennady Mikhailovich
полковник
Reshetnikov
Геннадий Михайлович
knew about
Решетников
this
знал
installation.
об этой
We
установке,
talked a
мы
lot
много
with him,
разговаривали.
and he said
Вот, и
that
он говорил,
yes,
что да,
we
мы
are
наблюдаем,
watching,
мы
we
видим.
are seeing. He says we
Мы
don't go there,
не суемся
we
туда, мы
understand
понимаем, что
that
это
this
наша
is not our
технология, мы имеем
technology.
право.
We have no right, like here.
Но,
But the current situation is
так
that we are
складывается на сегодня
forced,
ситуация,
and it turns
что
out
мы
that we have the right to make efforts
вынуждены, и
to
мы,
develop these
получается, имеем право
technologies.
предпринимать усилия по развитию этих технологий.
One of the most
Одно
important
из
events that will
важнейших
happen in the
событий,
very near future.
которое произойдет в
I do
самое
not mean the
ближайшее
change of
время. Я не
cycles
имею в
and the
виду
appearance of the planet
средневосточные
Marduk
появления
due to the sun.
планеты Мардук из-за
We will
Солнца.
see her
Мы её
very
увидим
soon.
очень скоро.
This is
Это
one
одна деталь
detail of the
вопроса.
question. Soon.
Скоро.
Soon.
Скоро. Тут
It is
очень
very
сложно сказать,
difficult to
потому
say
что
here,
сейчас
because
ожидается
now a sharp deterioration in the state of the sun and solar activity is expected, that is, a powerful surge, and this is precisely why. What do I mean by that? I mean the Aral Sea. On the plowshare at the bottom, there is a large technical object that takes part in the transition of spaceships from one dimension to another.
Принимает участие в переходе космических кораблей из одного измерения в другое.
We have a Nazca, and these are all the maps. The Nazca are not just maps.
Это не просто карта.
If you enlarge this map and put it on the bottom of the sea ocean, this is Maria of the oceans more precisely, then you will see that this map, in fact, shows you the direction in which an object should go in a straight line to some place. In other words, it's very interesting to remember the movie. Remember, it was called My God, This American. I'll remember now. It'll do. Where he accelerates by car and almost disappears. Back to the Future. That's the same thing. Remember, it accelerates there and then disappears once. The system is partly the same. And this complex in the Aral Sea, which is now surfacing, is exactly the one who is taking part in creating conditions for the transition. At the end of the century before last, when communists began to come to power, not communists then, but patriots, revolutionaries, it was a project of Shambhala. Shambhala has launched a project to stimulate goodness on earth. The project was a failure. Absolutely nothing happened. As if we wanted it the best, it turned out as always. After that, it was decided to start all this as a continuation of this project, take advantage of the results, and organize a revolution in Russia. Why? If they had not interfered with the historical process, the communist, I'm not afraid of this word, competition between America and Russia, which we are witnessing to this day, would have led to the fact that we would have learned very well and long ago, not only about the existence of chronocorridors and chronopoles, which I have already told, but they could still use them, and already use them, going to heaven or other realities, who for gold, who for oil, who for women, who for whom? I'm exaggerating, but this is reality. This is one of the reasons why 20 or 30 years ago they shouted that we have a limited amount of oil, there is no more oil there, for 50 or 100 years. But now they are silent, because ask any person who deals with oil, he says, we can't understand why. We extract it, it does not decrease. We extract it, it does not decrease. It comes from parallel realities, the earth. The system is an iridescent container or communicating vessels. It's this system that's going on. So, in order for us not to find out and not to understand this, they organize a revolution in Russia, fill up Russia. Then they arrange their projects. They arrange in Europe, then the Middle East, and then America. We did push-ups. We'll get up firm the first one. And now looming before us a unique perspective related to the Aral installation. Who was engaged in Aral, who knows that Aral is generally the second Bermuda Triangle, and even worse. Yes, Badgers, that's right. There she is such a boy that Americans will smoke with their Bermuda Triangle. So we have the opportunity to make a huge jump. But the question is, who will be the first there? Hopefully not Americans. We need to take this place. And, accordingly, everything that has already been found in the Yakutia region today. There we have the locations of all these installations plotted on the map, where these objects lie. So the life ahead is very interesting. I have another question. This Terminator setup, was it only for meteoric and asteroid danger, or was it set up, for example, for an aggressive invasion of matrix ships? No, just meteorites. Three types of meteorites were deflected. The first is that most often these meteorites carry dangerous bacteria. They are beaten regularly every year. The second case is, in particular, psychothelic. Here is an example. The psychotelic stone, he was an iron meteorite. He went straight into the installation. If it had fallen, it would have destroyed the installation element. Therefore picked up and slammed it, this meteorite. And the third type is rare, but it happens. These are the large asteroids that can cause the effect of a nuclear winter. Here are three. Everything else is left untouched. More technology. Everything is clear caduceus, pyramids. Yes. Now the Stargate technology is rising a lot in the network. She is also from the same opera, from the same civilizations. Here's the Stargate. Have you been engaged in this topic? Slava, well, you know better than anyone. But you've been talking about this topic for so long. You know that the Stargate is, on the one hand, a natural formation. Imagine it any way, it's natural. Look then, why did an installation appear that pummels meteorites asteroids? It has several reasons. By the way, the pursuit will help you, including you, to understand what is going on. Look, so 18,000 years ago with a little, and to be precise, 18,714 years ago. They drove into the planet Marduk here and put it behind the sun, in our orbit opposite to us. The thing is that in this system, look if we take with you any planet orbiting the sun. Here there is the sun, here, for example, there is the Earth. I'll just draw a circle for simplicity, although we have an orbitoelliptic, but a circle. And this is an ordinary oscillatory system that can be studied very easily without problems. In this system, in particular, we have the sun, the Earth, there are so-called vibrational points. This assemblage point mass. There are stable points. These are so-called trigonal points, which, by the way, it is the rhythm, the structure of trigonal points. That is related to energy release, I emphasize, to the maintenance of life on Earth. It is a system of energy information exchange and energy supply from a parallel world to the Earth. Energy, as it was called in ancient texts, the energy of life. Now you will see why, by the way, it has a direct relation to fullerenes. Why fullerenes are a very specific material, the qualities of which have not yet been appreciated. So, from the center, here we draw a straight line from the center of the Earth to the center of the sun like this. And then we form something like a hexagon. Well, it doesn't matter. Here it's 60 degrees, and here it's 60 degrees. This point is trigonal. These are places where you can put any object, give it some initial acceleration. And this object will move here forever at the speed of the Earth. Before the Earth, and behind the Earth. This trigonal is stable, but there are unstable points. They are so-called collinary. One here, two here, and one here, just where the planet Marduk is located. It is unstable. This is the reason why, from the end of the 16th to the middle of the 17th century, the planet Marduk was observed by astronomers several times over the course of 70 years. The book contains all the data. This is a scientific registration of this planet. She appeared. But what happens in this regard? And so, this is an unstable situation. So, if a large asteroid hits our planet, they lose their orbit.
Они теряют орбиту.
And they are building a complex on our planet that reflects a large meteorite. That's the answer. This is the first one.
Это первое.
Second,
Второе.
parallelists.
Параллельщики.
According to natural processes, in certain zones, the so-called places of power, there is a curvature of space-time. It naturally occurs. And if some small meteorite falls here, carrying dangerous bacteria, and infects our ecosystem, these bacteria immediately crawl into a parallel reality and infect their system. Therefore, they prefer not to clean up the situation at the entrance to the chronocorridor. They're pounding them right in our dimension here. They fly out and beat him right away. I have a recording made by the cameras of the Japanese Academy of Sciences. They're watching Sakurajimu volcano 24/7. And there, for 4 hours, I watch a real fight, a space war. That is, when I counted how many Terminators exploded there during this time, and it's very interesting there. It is clearly visible how the Terminator flies. Some appear correction. There is nothing. Suddenly he appeared, flew, and the flash was so colossal that I looked and thought, I wonder why the Japanese don't say anything. Why are they silent? There's a real space war there. If I happen to, I'll show you these videos, bugs. But what I saw for 4 hours, it's like dusk until night. When I counted the explosions, I thought, if it happens there, it means that the Earth is now undergoing a phase, where this setting at breakneck speed reflects the meteorites and asteroids. Well, it's just horror. I say, how to survive there, I have no idea. And what would have happened to the Earth at all if not for this installation? This is a very impressive picture. I think that maybe we will make some film together with Kalia together. I'll show you these videos. It's a horror, what's going on? I think thank you to those who built it. And for us, and for them, and for Mordek. This is salvation in fact. In parallel dimensions, there is also a meteor falls. Of course. This. It's all the same. Everywhere. Takes energy from here, right? Yes, 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 of course. No there, no, not from here. The land there is also the same land. They take it there. It's just that in our dimension, it is represented by, well, maybe 5% in our dimension. And in that reality, in parallel, they all duty and interest. We have at least 4 dimensions interacting with us now. 4. Constants interact, of which there is one dimension very highly developed. There is a dimension that Nostradamus talked about. Remember, he wrote there that he predicted events on Earth, and some predictions came true, some did not come true. They did not come true because it was not about our dimension, but about a parallel one. He thought everything came true there, absolutely. And there are civilizations lowered by our level of development, and the 4th is at our level of approximate development, and we interact with them very well. The rest are hard to reach dimensions. There are much more of them there. But this is Earth. Therefore, this civilization is a highly developed Earth. They at one time, together with the Anunnaki, with the Martians, they muddied this story, they built this complex, which reflects the Metiae asteroids. And they built this complex on all the planets of the solar system. He has been to Mars, Tiamat, and many other planets.
On Jupiter,
Everywhere.
these 21 fell, all shot. Not ordained on Jupiter.
Here, by the way, the reaction of Jupiter was very indicative, or an indicator of Noah. Do you remember when the vibrations coming from Jupiter were recorded, literally shortly before the fall? That is, Jupiter was clearly shivering, he was reacting to these blows. Fated 2004 year, in my opinion. And this is also a great illustration of what technologies are used to allow this installation to work in an environmentally friendly way. You see, not only is the energy of the Earth, but they also use not electromagnetic fields, but the aura of the Earth. And this is millions of kilometers, if not a
миллионы
billion
километров,
kilometers,
если
the
не
aura
миллиард
of the Earth
километров
is expanding.
расширяется аура Земли,
All
то
this
все это
distance is
сканируется
scanned by the
аурой,
aura,
и тут
and then immediately it
она
reacts to
реагирует
any
на любое
occurrence.
вхождение.
Valery Mikhailovich. The mind?
Girls, you can work on.
All right.
Valerie, your lecture is very interesting about Lucifer. But it is interesting and very consonant with two sources that have come across recently. This is a Vichy book, and many have read it about a certain virus that captured in space, in general, created a magic cap, and in general, she is a human personality in a circle here under this hood, incarnate and so on, and that supposedly this dome can somehow be broken through, just get out of here, and I have a couple of sources. I do not know if you have heard or not an interview with a certain contact of the Soviet period, the cyber system is called, about the fact that too, a civilization that does not enter into open contact, it has chosen as a risk, and gives him about multidimensional knowledge, about the fact that the whole universe thinks quite differently, and about the fact that this cyber system has created due to the Tachyon field, it has created an energy cap in the same way. And it's like all these teachings, religions, they all lead humanity around by the nose too. How do you feel about this theory? If so, where is the way out of this hood?
Well, this is
Ну,
how I'm going to try to
это как
explain
бы, я
what's really
попробую
going
пояснить, что на
on.
самом деле
I
происходит.
always
Я
use
всегда
terms
очень
like
осторожно
Tachyon
использую
fields
такие
very
термины, как
carefully.
тахионные поля. Это все придумки. Все придумки.
What actually
Что
takes
на самом
place?
деле имеет место
Look,
быть? Смотрите,
speaking of planet Earth,
говоря
this
о
is a
планете Земля,
fundamentally important structure.
это принципиально важная структура.
Planet Earth,
Планета
it is
Земля,
located in the
она
energy
находится
field.
в энергетическом поле.
This energy
Это
field
энергетическое
looks
поле.
like, for simplicity, a flask.
Для простоты. Колбу.
This is the so-called hood.
Колпак так называемый.
Indeed, the Earth is bounded by this field.
Земля, она ограничена этим полем.
Here at the exit is Shambhala.
На выходе находится Шамбала.
Any information from space enters the core and then is distributed over the surface of the Earth, and vice versa.
Наоборот.
So this membrane, it is partly an element of a project,
Эта мембрана,
both a global
она
and a private project, related to the degradation of the planet Earth, directly related to what we call Shambhala.
и глобального, и частного проекта, связанного с деградацией планеты Земля, ну и связано напрямую с тем, что мы называем Шамбала.
Shambhala
Шамбала
is
это
half a
наполовину
physical plane,
физический
half
план,
an energy
наполовину
plane.
энергетический план.
Shambhala leaves mostly people, in our understanding, highly spiritual, not random.
Высокодуховные, не случайные,
And from Shambhala, people come here periodically with a very specific mission.
с очень специфической миссией.
One of those whom you know well, who came from Shambhala with a corresponding mission.
Шамбалы, с соответствующей
It was
миссией.
Jesus Christ,
Иисус Христос.
and he did not hide it, that he came from Shambhala. Just at that moment, and in the text you will find the name.
Название.
We call it
Мы
Shambhala.
называем это Шамбала.
In his time,
В
it
его
was
время
called the
это
abode
называлось
of Barbella.
Бarbелла.
He came from the monastery of Barbel. He came from there, and he communicated with the spirit of the earth.
С духом земли.
The Creator Father, the supreme cosmic being, is the spirit of the earth.
Это дух земли.
That's because he came from Shambhala. He actually talked about all that is relevant to our closed system.
К нашей замкнутой системе.
He was talking about Satan and so on. This is us, in our closed system. Satan, yes. He is Lucifer, yes.
Люцифер, да.
But everything that concerns the galaxy, especially beyond the galaxy. And who is Lucifer? Yes, well, not even seriously. This is our local system here.
Локальная система.
Therefore, we deal with everything. Therefore, answering the question, yes, this membrane certainly exists. Energy informational, without it is impossible in any way. And due to the events related to the war of the gods, and due to the fact that the energy of information, coming to Earth from space in its pure form without transformation, it is disastrous for us. Kolenka, listen carefully.
Коленька,
Mikhailovich,
слушайте внимательно.
that's when we start writing books with you, first of all, summing up the results before ourselves. A kind of life path of research. And of course, the most important thing is to convey to the reader some meanings, so today I have told you about many meanings. I will ask you two questions, but this is actually one. Specify what kind of thoughts you want readers to have in their heads after reading from this wonderful book. And the meaning is knowledge, respectively, tools, and what tools do you want to give a cheat? How can they use this knowledge in life? First of all, of course, the book should be read, because the book raises a lot of different kinds of questions. This book, although it is a single, integral one, but there are a lot of questions there. And this book is about the pyramids, and about what knowledge was embodied in the pyramid. This is a book about Hyperborea and the history of the previous civilization. The main point is what? I really would not like that, especially the new generation of people who come to Earth, and who can become the engine of this very important evolutionary change on Earth. They did not encounter the same stupidities that we have encountered. And they have not lost the desire to move in this direction, and they have not lost faith in all this, because even now, at the moment when we have only 5 or 6 generations left, we have very little time to swing. We need to go this way very quickly and efficiently. Therefore, in this pyramid book, I have concentrated the knowledge collected over 33 years. Of course, this is not the only book. After that, a book will appear. It will be called Jaeger's Cub, where very interesting data will be given on paleotechnologies, on those practical ones that you, roughly speaking, can take a saw there, a chisel there, a pipe, file at home, do everything right there, and you will have it work. Here, but also an understanding of the mechanisms of how it works, in order not to make a mistake, because if used incorrectly, you can get a negative result. And the third book is such an important epoch-making work for me. It will be called Hierophants, where I will talk about this very difficult fate of people who carry this knowledge through a millennium. It's like Jesus I told you today. This is how to love people. In order to 33 years to make that kind of death. It's not easy. Therefore, the more we are pressed by cosmic events, like it or not, but the sun will soon go berserk. We are approaching a milestone with you. Or we make our contribution, not only to ourselves, not only to our families, but also to civilization. And we come out victorious, or we disappear. Choose. I'm not scaring anyone, I'm just talking about things that the Hierophants, the priests, talked about. Throughout the history of the priesthood, they left information that there would be next events. And the Denderian zodiac is the same zodiac of cyclically returning processors. On this zodiac, you can accurately predict when will be the next passes through a meteor stream and meltdowns, with all the ensuing consequences. So are we going to prepare for this, or are we going to flatten ourselves on the ground? We'll sort of lie down in a circle, sit in a meditation pose, and ask someone to help us. You understand, no one will help us. Moreover, you yourself are genetically strong and toothy. Now our time comes, and I wish this time you didn't. And now, at this moment, the civilizations of the earth are being given carte blanche. If this was not the case for another 20 years, they did not give it, knowledge was closed, then now, at this transitional stage. Please, I will answer them in their words. They said this: we won't interfere and we won't help either. Andrei Mikhailovich, do you remember how in the 96th year, we first kind of joked, and then made a conference? Answered the third appeal of the coma. From the same opera. Partly yes, partly yes. So it's still about the tools. Is this book a manifesto after all, or is it an instruction for action? Instructions for action. This is a clear instruction for action, because everything is explained there why so and why not otherwise. That is, how to get an effective tool. When these spiritual delusions begin, pyramids begin there. There are these ribs covered with a cloth. I always ask the question, do you really think that the ancient Egyptian priests, in particular Himeon, were so stupid, incomprehensible, that he took and built this mountain of stones 160 meters, when you could just rap 4 sticks with a rag, vodka, yes, and just get high with women? In nature? Yes, in nature. Because before, let's say, it was impossible otherwise, just like that. So, guys, and when I see people lying there, meditating under these, I understand these are good people. They are such trusting people. You ask, well, how does it work? Oh, Pret. Oh, how Pret, he says. I look and understand. Pret. Pret. This is in pursuit. I mean, that's it. I really would not like my children to get infected with this disease there. You know, there are some friends of mine there. I just want to save my friends and my loved ones from this plague. So since we are doing this with you. Vladimir Chichelin Contact also gave me a book. I communicated with Hierarchylon, the ruler of the earth. And so he says about the catastrophe of the earth, the 5th race, Malaysia, the homeland of the Russian people, that the name of the book is Rus, the region of ancient Egypt. Who were the priests and ancient inhabitants of Egypt who used these pyramids? It was those Arabs who, by no means, no. Well, and what is it known about the pyramids of the Arctic? The most ancient pyramids are not in Egypt, but in the polar region, at the pole. One of the theories that civilization did not come from Africa, but on the contrary, from the North Pole, is a hyperbolist theory, that this ancient Russia was. Today, we have partly touched on this issue. Indeed, over the past, roughly speaking, 20,000 years, let's say 25,000 years, there have been several centers of crystallization civilization on Earth. Some of them we talk about and know about, some of them we have not, let's say, on the contrary, deliberately forgotten. So, the center of civilization. Its civilization began, I emphasize once again, I do not reason and do not consider periods, for example, in 100 million years. There may have been some civilizations there before, but they are not interesting to us for the simple reason that they did not have any impact on us. Those who have influenced us are important to us, and we are their continuation. So, it all started from the moment when the civilization of the planet Mars, or Eden and Tiamat on Earth, had quite pragmatic interests. First, they were interested in uranium ores, which they mined not only in Africa, not only on the Kola Peninsula, but also in some other places. They were interested in the situation related to the possible settlement of the Earth after the Great Catastrophe in the solar system. They were not allowed to do the second one. They wanted to do it. They were not given it. Therefore, the Mu continent is populated first, along with Hyperborea, because the landing, namely the landing of the Mars-Chetan civilization, took place at the North Pole. The North Pole at that time was the most powerful chronocorridor, the most powerful geofault, very deep. There, they didn't arrive, they came out of there. And firm, there they began to civilize Hyperborea, because it is a convenient place. It is due to the fact that the Hyperboreans were in direct contact with the civilization of Mars. And very diligent materialistic students, they have not lost a single war in the entire history of Hyperborea.
они за всю историю Гипербореи не проиграли ни одной войны.
Also on Earth, as the gods were. In parallel, so Hyperborea, the mainland of Mu. Then the mainland and Hyperborea began to civilize. The secondary civilization is the Atlantans. They are secondary to them. Then they moved on. These white people traveled across America, across North America, through it, through Mesoamerica, Yucatan to the south, and then they went to another very important center of civilization. This is the civilization of the South Pole. The South Pole was covered with ice about 2,500 years ago, just recently. And until that moment, it was quite a blooming country, like Greenland, where there was snow only on the tops of mountains. The climate was very mild, but the civilization that was located at the South Pole, of course, developed so effectively that it very quickly disappeared from maps, historical maps of the Earth. And this is understandable. And it was with this civilization that the Nazis, in particular Ahnenerbe, encountered when they climbed the southern belt. And so everything that happened later with the bird expedition was connected with this civilization, because the Americans went there. And their desire was not just to find the supposedly Germans, their bases, and pile them up. It was a much more far-reaching story, so they were met as expected, sorted out. And this is this center of civilization. It's kind of so quiet. Now look, the book has been preserved. It's called Hurrah Linda book. As it turned out, it is also in Russian. I didn't even know it existed. So this book was written in 4449th year after the flooding of the country of Aslan, Atlantis in fact. And this book was rewritten due to the fact that the original was damaged by the flood. How interesting, in the year 1259th year of our era. Just confirmation of the fall of the Santorini asteroid. And that's where the history of Atlantis is described. And it says that before this giant planetoid, one of the ancient Egyptian papyri fell on Atlantis. It was preserved in the Egyptian temple of Harmeh. He tells that there was a warning received by the priests. They also developed parapsychological capabilities in Atlantis. They were different, they weren't like us. And they had a pyramid of a space communications center. They receive information that a given event is about to happen. And, accordingly, here I am talking about what? So, Atlantis is a caste society. Caste. There were 3 castes, all according to science, but there was a 4th closed caste. It was called the caste of lens and mirror manufacturers. This is a closed caste, which entry was so simply forbidden. People were accepted there not according to their kind, but according to their abilities. And that's when they got the information that there would be a fall. They came, accordingly, with a wish, with advice to the one who ruled Atlantis at that time, reported on the situation, and were refused. After that, they assembled a fleet of 120 ships. They loaded all their artifacts there, everything they needed, and left for the port of Cadiz from Atlantis. For today, the port of Cadiz. Cadiz in Spain, there still exists this city where they came. And the text says that then this fleet was divided into 2 parts. One component of the long river went to the north of Africa. In fact, there was no Mediterranean Sea at that time. It was all brought in by the Atlantans. These were their colonies. And the other half was under control. The first fleet was commanded by a certain Neftuna, and the second by his brother Inca. Inca civilization, such a connection, although it hardly exists. This fleet went towards Mesoamerica to look for those Western opportunities, preserved islands. In short, they left before the fall of this Azorian asteroid. Gone, preserved, after which an asteroid crashes, there with all the ensuing consequences. Atlantis is dying. At the same moment, Hyperborea also dies. Because it's tidal. Hyperborea is a large island and is bordered by mountains at the edges. In other words, it's like a bowl with a magnificent climate. And when the tidal wave went, the big planetoid was going against the movement of the Earth. It slows down during the fall of the Earth's rotation speed. By inertia, the water went, and it seemed to pour through the mountains. And for a few, as they say, noon all this territory, all this place water at this moment. Air falls from above with a temperature of -70, -100 as a result of the dividing installation. All this freezes, a giant glacier grows. Hyperborea has been dealt with, Atlantis has been dealt with, and everyone else has also been dealt with. And the civilization of the center of the South Pole also closed the ice, but they went into parallel dimensions. Here is the story concerning the hollow earth. There is really no hollow earth. There is an entrance to a parallel dimension. And indeed, when you observe the movement of certain ships cosmically above the Earth, and you can see how these ships fly into the mountain at an angle, it feels like there's no corridor, nothing. There, apparently, if we are in this plane of the Earth, then they have this plane. Therefore, if you enter the throne corridor, there is a feeling that you are going inside. And it's not inside, it's just a parallel reality. And here at the South Pole is one of the most powerful portals, where the entrance there, which was found by submarines. In general, there is a story there, covered with darkness in a sense, but this is a real story. These are the main civilizations, the centers. This is the planet, the mainland Mu, this is Hyperborea, this is Atlantis, this is the South Pole. Here are the three main, or rather four main centers, one of which is top secret, from above. This is the first blow. That was the first blow. Because when they decided to figure it out, they still put a certain, let's say, comma in the history. They hit the mainland because the Anunnaki lived there. There is the center of everything. That's why they were all covered at once. I've told you a lot of different things. Part of the book is about this. It says it one way or another. And of course, in the end, a point is also put about Hyperborea, where in fact it was, because there is a lot of talk. Who, where? Where, what? I say, guys, we take the maps of the same Mercator, but he drew. Let's combine Mercator maps, patiometric maps. A map of the Moscow bottom with you. We combine all the cards, and we see where it is. And everything is clear with Atlantis, but if Plato wrote that it is located 600 kilometers west of Gibraltar, no. But Plato wrote that it is located 600 kilometers away. What else do you need? Well, what else do you need? So that's where you look for her. So there and found the ends. But our people fantasize. Who is in the Black Sea? Who is in the Mediterranean Sea? Who is at the South Pole? Who is into what a lot? And just take the cards and combine them. I just took it, worked hard, combined it, and that's it. The question is closed. With Hyperborea, with Atlantis, everything is clear where it all was. But this volcano of the military-industrial complex, now Terminators dive there during the eruption of the Gangor. No, these are all ships. On an expedition to the Medvedskaya Ridge with Vadim Chernobrov. There's a Shanghai garage in Kalinin. There the locals say, where the PAL is a tunnel, these pshins are burnt like caramelized, such corrugated walls are there. There, Chantal burns down these objects and triangles, and the balls just go away. Yes. Always 45 degrees dead anyway. The same thing happens in Sochi at the BIF. At home. There's nothing moving apart, no. Yes. That is, there is apparently a powerful chronocorridor. Yes, and of course, you understand correctly, these are expeditions that come here and they study the Earth. But how can I tell
Ну, как
you?
вам сказать,
They are
они
not so
не
much
столько
studying the
изучают
Earth
Землю
as
как
such,
таковую,
as they are studying the
сколько они изучают
consequences of certain
последствия
events.
неких событий.
For example,
Например,
oil on Earth appeared as a result of
нефть
regular
на
massages
Земле
of the
появилась
Earth's
в
surface by
результате
meteorites and
регулярных
asteroids.
массажей поверхности Земли метеоритами и астероидами.
Accordingly, they are
Соответственно,
interested in it.
их это
They
интересует.
constantly
Они
arrive,
постоянно
and these
прилетают, вот
balls
такие
drill into the
шары
ground,
дрилят
descend,
Землю, а
fly
после
out,
прилетают.
and they collect
Они собирают
information.
информацию.
It helps
Им
them
это
to predict
помогает
the situation
предсказать
for the
ситуацию
future.
на будущее.
For example,
Они же,
about 50
например,
years before the start of
лет за
nuclear weapons
50
tests
до
at the
начала
relevant test sites, they
испытаний
came,
ядерных
took
вооружений
soil samples from different
на
depths,
соответствующих
and then flew there and filtered them
полигонах,
after the test, and
приходили,
looked at how the living body of the Earth
брали
reacts
пробы
to this kind of
грунта с
impact.
разных глубин, а затем прилетали туда и их фиксировали уже после испытания и смотрели, как реагирует живое тело Земли на такого рода воздействие.
Because everything is very much alive, and they, despite their level
И
of
они,
development,
несмотря на
cannot
их
predict
уровень
everything.
развития, не могут предсказать всего.
Therefore, the
Поэтому
Sosovsky explosion
взрыв
is a
— это
specific catastrophe of a
конкретная
spaceship of
катастрофа
the 91st year.
корабля
In the
91-го
Sosovsky
года.
explosions of the
Сасовские
92nd,
же взрывы
after that, the
92-го,
Tver
после этого
explosions are
Тверские
also
взрывы
extremely interesting.
тоже, ну, крайне
And for
интересные.
me
У
then,
меня было
according to the
потом по
results of
результатам
research,
исследований
it was even
любопытно
curious
даже
to
узнать,
find
что,
out that this
оказывается,
Tver explosion
там вот этот
turns out to
Тверской
be
взрыв,
fantastic in
вообще
general.
фантастика.
It
Это
was
был-
just a
это с их
test on their
стороны было
part.
просто испытание.
And there the
А там
situation is
ситуация
like this a
такая.
5-story house. A woman is sitting in an apartment on the couch,
Женщина
watching
сидит в
TV,
квартире,
as they
на
say.
диване, смотрит
Her feet
телевизор,
are on the couch.
развиваются ноги на
At this
диване.
time,
В это
she
время она
sees that
видит,
a
что
certain object is rising.
поднимается некий объект,
There's a ball higher up,
выше, шар.
and at this
И в
time,
это время
clap, such a clap.
раздается такой
And from
хлопок.
there, stones
И
flew from the 5th
соответственно,
floor from
камни
above.
полетели туда,
In general,
груды
everything is a
разобрались.
pile, as if a stone
Обвал
collapse
каменный
occurred.
произошел.
Upstairs, there is also a man sitting on the
Сидит тоже
sofa,
человек
watching
на диване,
TV.
смотрит телевизор.
At this moment,
Вот в этот
he is
момент
lifted from the sofa, pushes him
поднимают
close
с
to the
дивана,
wall, and there is a powerful,
заталкивает
such a
его
flash,
близко к
pop.
стене.
Absolutely in the
Происходит в квартире
apartment.
мощный, такая вспышка, хлоп.
Imagine a wall
Представьте,
separating a balcony and an apartment, and there's a wall, a
разделяющая
balcony.
балкон и квартиру. И там стена, балкон.
It's all coming
Это
out.
всё вылетает наружу.
The tulle hanging on the
Тюль,
window
висевшая
flies
на
60
окне,
or 70 meters
пролетает
and hangs
60
itself on a
сантиметров
tree.
и вешается на
I
дерево.
don't know how this
Как
is
это
possible.
возможно? Не знаю.
So, the wall
Итак,
completely
стена
flies
полностью
out, and the
вылетает,
gas
а
pipe
газовая
is
труба
intact, as no one touched it.
как никто не
The light
трогал.
bulbs didn't
Лампочки
break,
не
the
побили.
bags stuck together in the
Кухни,
kitchen.
пакеты.
In general, you look,
В общем,
it's a solid
сплошная
anomaly.
аномальщина.
Shoti taki.
Вот это таки.
It turns out that they
Оказывается,
conducted an
они
experiment
провели
on moving from one dimension to another. Not quite successful.
Неудачный.
That's it, well, that's how it went.
Вот бабахнуло
But the
вот так.
person, of course, was asked
Ну,
for an
человек,
apartment.
конечно,
They
квартиру
didn't
попросил,
reimburse
не
him,
возместили,
true,
правда,
but they
но
left
живым
him
оставили.
alive. That's the kind of
Вот
thing
такие
that
вещи
happens.
происходят.
That is a living structure.
То есть
They
это
are not
живая
gods.
структура. Они не
They are
боги.
like us
Они
humans,
как и мы,
only at a
только
different
другого
level of
развития.
development. Therefore,
Поэтому, когда
when you begin
начинаешь
to understand these
разбираться в
issues,
этих вопросах,
you understand at what
понимаешь,
level to communicate with
на
them,
каком уровне с ним
and what to
общаться,
expect
и
from them in general. Does he come into contact with us in our physical world? Well, if necessary.
Ну, если
As a
нужно.
rule,
Ну,
they
как
can come
правило,
out,
они
as it
могут
was,
выйти
for
так,
example, for several
это
years.
было,
I don't
например,
remember how
несколько
many now.
лет еще
We have a
назад.
giant triangular object hanging
У нас
over St.
над Питером,
Petersburg,
над Азовским озером
over
тоже
Lake
зависает
Ladoga,
регулярно
remember,
такой гигантский
regularly.
треугольный объект.
There's a geological fault
Там
on Lake
георазлом
Ladoga,
на Азовском
and he
озере.
uses
И
it
он
twice every
каждый
year
год
like a
два
bayonet.
раза его, как штык.
Early in spring
Рано
and
весной
at the end of
и в
summer,
конце лета
it
он
appears,
появляется.
hangs, and the balls fly
Зависает.
away from it, fly
Они от
away
него
somewhere,
шары такие отлетают,
then rise from above,
куда-то улетают,
or
потом
rather
сверху,
from
то
below,
есть снизу
fly up
поднимаются,
to it,
подлетают к нему,
but not
но не
reaching it,
долетая,
as if
как
they
бы
flare up.
вспыхивают.
So what's going on?
Что происходит?
The ship is hovering
Корабль
here.
здесь зависает.
He's hovering over a
Он
geohazard.
зависает
He needs
над
recharging.
георазломом, ему нужна
He
подзарядка.
lowers special
Он
objects
опускает
energetically,
специальный объект
takes the energy of the
энергетический, берет
Earth,
энергию Земли.
and then, when
А
they
затем,
fly
когда
up
они
to the
подлетают к
object,
объекту, они
they
как
sort
бы
of open up,
раскрываются,
discharge and transfer
разрезаются
energy
и
to this
передают
ship.
кораблю
It's
этому
charging.
энергию. Он заряжается.
After that, he,
После
in
чего он, по
theory,
идее,
was pumped with our energy
насосался энергией
and leaves
нашей и
here.
уходит отсюда.
A plane appears.
Появляется
It's like
самолет,
he's going into
как бы
another
уходит в
dimension.
другое измерение.
The plane flies by,
Самолет
it
пролетает, он опять
reappears and
появляется
continues.
и продолжает.
One of the cases,
Один из случаев.
the woman
Женщина
literally somewhere probably
Буквально
70
где-то, наверное,
kilometers from
километров
this
за
place,
70
if
от
not
этой трассы,
more,
если не больше,
decided to take a
в
bath in the
квартире
apartment.
решила принять ванну.
There was no warm
Теплой воды
water,
не было.
and she climbed into the
И
tub
она полезла
and
в
put
ванну
it
и сунула
there,
туда,
of course,
естественно,
the heater and plugged it into the
нагреватель.
network. And
И воткнула его
accordingly,
в сеть.
when she was
Ну и,
twisted,
соответственно,
she
когда
just
ее
realized
скрутило,
that everything,
она
her
просто
son is
поняла,
not
что
at
все, у
home,
сына дома
he will
нет.
come and
Он
I,
придет, и я,
as they
как
say.
говорится, там
Thought dead there at that
мертвая
moment.
подумала в этот
Very
момент.
importantly,
Вот очень
she thought
важно.
hard
Она
about the fact
жестко
that she would
подумала о том,
die
что она
and her
умрет, а
son would
сын
not
ее
see
не
her.
увидит.
What do you think she's
Понимаешь,
telling?
она рассказывает.
At this moment,
В
he
этот
says,
момент, говорит,
it is
непонятно
unclear
какая
what
сила.
kind of force. He
Провод
pulls out the
выдергивает,
wire,
ее
picks
поднимает
her
и
up,
кладет на
and
пол.
puts her on the floor. Where is the ship and where is
Где
she?
корабль и где она?
The impulse was
Импульс
immediately
тут же
counted
считали,
and immediately saved a life.
спасли жизнь.
Valery, now everyone has read the book. Everything has been done correctly. The outer space has been evaluated. It has become well done. But we still go around to the asteroid belt, and by chance the asteroid arrives yesterday. Let's just say
Скажем
that
так,
if
у
we
нас,
do
если мы
everything
все делаем
right,
правильно,
we have a
у нас
very
есть
serious
очень серьезная
opportunity to
возможность
reflect
эту
this
ситуацию
situation.
отразить.
A very serious situation.
Очень серьезная
They will help
ситуация.
us, and they will be enough. Well, in
Ну,
theory,
по
if we
идее,
start
если
taking
мы
steps
начнем делать
and everything
шаги,
goes right,
и все будет
we will
правильно,
miss
нам
something.
чего-то
They will
будет не
help,
хватать,
they will
помогут.
help. But we need to
Но нам
solve the
надо сейчас
most
решить самый
important
главный
issue
вопрос.
with the energies of Lucius
Энергии
now. This is serious.
Это серьезно.
Let's ask the last question, and we can continue with one. A very interesting case happened in my life, for which I can't find an explanation. I was then working as a salesman in a store where there were glass walls. One day we went to a perfume store. Two men of incredible beauty came in. There are simply no such things. And one light and dark. And the dark one began to baptize me as if, but not in the same way as the priest was baptized, somehow in a different way. But I was scared and turned away. I turn around, he's trying there again. I turned around again. I say, "What are you doing? I understand that these are not buyers." They turn around and leave. But they feel that I was scared, and I'm responsible for the cash register. And I don't understand who these people are. They left, I think. Thank God that it was at all. After a while, they come in again. I already thought that there would be no more of them. He begins to baptize the same thing. I turn away from fear, and they just watch. I looked at this blonde guy. He had such an expression on his face, as if he felt sorry for me to such an extent. Well, again, I do not know how to react, because I am responsible for the checkout. And I do not understand. I think there would be people, but the walls are glass. There are no people. They turned around, went to the store, to the department opposite. Everything is glass. I can see them. I ran to the next department, called Yulia, well, like a salesman from another department. Look, these guys have come in. They're starting to baptize, and their clothes were unusual. How do our men dress? Well, like this, just below the knees.
Robes.
Халаты.
Like a tunic. A tunic. Yeah.
Туника.
Here, well, she's kind of like a ha-ha, she's still going. Well, she just has this kind of speech. Then, for the third time. Then the director came, brought different perfumes, sits here next to me. And here is a small glass stand, a shelving. They come in again, they start baptizing again. I'm already looking at him, as if looking for protection. I don't understand what they are doing. Well, look, I say, what are they doing? Why at all? Well, I'm in a panic, and he looks at me. I say, "Mother," but there is no one.
I understand that he doesn't see them.
Of course, I fell silent, and began to think that something was wrong with me. They're leaving again. When the director had already left, I ran to Yulia. Yul, can you imagine, I say, the director was sitting here. I say, these men came to me again, they start baptizing again, but there is no one. Nagy, or I didn't see anyone. You weren't there for anyone.
A story for
История для
Bulgakov.
Булгакова.
I understand that they probably don't see them, but I see them. I can see their expression.
What were your
У вас
feelings at that
ощущения в
moment?
тот момент какие
What
были?
did you feel on a
Что вы
physical
ощущали?
level?
На физическом
Fear.
уровне.
Strong fear.
Сильный страх.
Just because I wasn't ready. I didn't understand what they were doing.
No, it's fear.
Нет,
You
это
just
страх.
don't
Просто
understand,
вы не понимаете,
or it's some kind of
либо
induced
это
fear.
какой-то наведенный
Fear is
страх.
some kind of wave of fear. I understand that it's just because I wasn't ready. I didn't expect that people could come in. Forgive me for such questions.
Okay, and
Хорошо,
after
после
that,
этого,
how
как
was the
прошла
night?
ночь?
It's fine. I can't say. The fact is that after this incident, I remember them every day somehow, somewhere in the background, every day. Although I try not to think about them, I don't remember. But for some reason, somehow, against the background, I understand that they are somewhere nearby.
Try it.
Нарисуйте, попробуйте.
By the way, a good
Кстати говоря,
offer.
хорошее, да,
Really
хорошее предложение,
draw.
действительно, нарисовать.
It's very important
Очень
how
важно,
they
как
actually
они на самом
looked,
деле
these
выглядели,
people.
эти люди.
Because, well,
Вот, потому
there
что,
are a lot of such
таких
cases,
случаев
a
очень
lot.
немного. Очень
But
немного.
one of the
Один
indicators
из
is the feeling
показателей
during this action, or at
это
night.
ощущение во время вот этого действия. Либо ночью.
You could have slept deeply
Вы могли
somehow,
спать
or on the
как-то глубоко,
contrary,
или
you
напротив,
saw something at
ночью
night,
что-то
something
увидели, что-то
unusual. The
необычное.
next day
На
something
следующий
could
день
happen.
что-то могло произойти.
Didn't track it.
Therefore, I can't say anything more
Поэтому
specific.
что-то
You
сказать
have to
более
eat
конкретно
here.
я не могу.
And since no one saw them except me, could they be with some kind of parallel reality?
Of course.
Конечно.
In parallel,
Если есть
there
параллельные,
could be the
могли
same
и
thing in a
неправильные
non-parallel
реалии.
reality.
То самое.
There are a
Очень
lot of
много
cases when they
случаев, когда
come,
они приходят,
they are interested
их
in people with a
интересуют
background.
люди с предысторией,
It is with a background from previous lives.
из предыдущей
If a
жизни.
person is
Если человек
unusual,
необычный,
and they notice such a
и они
person,
такого человека,
that as I have already
замечают,
said today,
что, оп,
there are
как
signs
я
here
уже
above their
сегодня
heads.
говорил,
Every
есть знаки,
person,
вот здесь
especially
над
a
головой,
non-random person, has a
у
symbol
каждого
of
человека,
belonging.
особенно у неслучайного человека, есть символ принадлежности.
And by this symbol
И
they
по этому
distinguish.
символу они
Who?
различают.
In other words, they
Они
can
могут
come
подойти
up
к
to
вам и
you
начать с
and
вами
start some kind of
какое-то
interaction with you,
либо
or they
нежный
cannot
сюжет
start,
именно из-за
because
этого
of this
символа
symbol of
принадлежности.
belonging. And,
Вот. И,
accordingly, if you are a
соответственно,
person
если
who
вы
interests
человек,
them in a
который
certain
их
way, they, as a
определенным образом
rule, begin to
интересует,
interact with
они,
you. In order
как
to
правило,
remove your
начинают
energy
с вами
copy from
взаимодействовать,
you,
чтобы снять с вас вашу энергетическую копию.
and then they
Вот.
take this
Затем эту
copy
копию
with
они
them.
забирают с собой.
And they also need a
И
pattern.
им
This
еще
is an
нужен
example of the course of your thoughts.
паттерн, это пример хода ваших мыслей.
Therefore, if
Поэтому
there was a
если
silent way on their
с их
part,
стороны был
but a
какой-то,
question,
пусть
and you
молчаливый,
somehow
но
reacted
вопрос,
to it,
и вот вы как-то вот среагировали на него.
because usually,
Потому что
when they
обычно,
do this
когда
operation,
они эту
they come
операцию
into close
проделывают,
contact with a
они
person,
входят в близкий
and
контакт
then
с
they draw in
человеком,
his mind the
затем
thought
они проецируют
that
его
you are
сознание,
living
мысль
wrong,
такую, что
you
вы
have
живете
violated all our
неправильно,
laws,
вы нарушили
therefore
все
you and your
законы,
whole earth, it will
поэтому
burn
и
in the
вы, и вся
fire of
ваша
hell,
земля,
and
она
so
вот
on.
сейчас сгорит в
And
огне
here is a
адском и
man,
так
his
далее. И
reaction.
вот человек,
He
вот его
began to
реакция,
think,
вот он начал
how
думать,
did he start
вот
thinking?
как он начал
What thoughts
думать,
came up?
какие мысли
That's the
пришли. Вот это и
key.
есть ключ.
They take this
Они
key.
этот ключ
Of
берут,
course, nothing will
конечно,
happen.
ничего не произойдет.
They just take
Они
the
просто берут
key.
ключ.
And
А
then this
затем
matrix that they took
эта
from a
матрица,
person, they open
которую
it.
человека
They
взяли,
get
они
access
ее
to it through
вскрывают,
your
они
way of
получают к ней
thinking.
доступ через образ
That
природы
is, they
своей.
are.
То
Then?
есть они
Protect and more.
And why? Why?
зачем?
Why? They're not doing you
Они
any
ничего плохого
harm.
не делают.
Your money is not
У тебя
lost.
деньги при этом не пропадают.
Cash register.
The main thing is that you have everything preserved.
No, everything will be
Нет,
with
все
you.
будет при тебе.
Don't worry.
Все будет не волнуйся.
Yes. It's just that if
Просто
they are
если ты их
interested in you,
интересуешь,
then
они,
they will
безусловно,
certainly
это
do
сделают.
it. Anyway,
Так или иначе.
And after this incident, every day, coming to work, wet cleaning in the morning, I took a bucket, filled it with water, started washing the floor, and I have a strip on my left hand, like a hickey, bright and bright. And I was afraid. I didn't understand what it was, and I had a long one, several months. Every time I was covered with sweat from fear, and then I'm going to die under the moon and die. Well, let this strip be.
what a coward.
Вот
After
точно.
that, I stopped being afraid, and there it is. That's it. The fear disappeared, and the strip stopped appearing.
Of course, if I had been there at that moment,
Я бы, конечно,
I would have
если бы я в
looked,
тот момент
first of all, at the
оказался
place,
там, я посмотрел,
because where they were
во-первых,
standing.
на место,
There
потому что
should have
там,
been
где
an
он стоял,
energy
должен
trace
был
left.
энергетический
I
след.
should have stayed.
Должен
Then it
был
was
остаться.
necessary
Потом
to
надо
look at your
посмотреть
spine
на
and its
ваш
reaction,
позвоночник,
because
на
if
его
there was
реакцию.
an
Если было
impact,
оказано
the trace on you
воздействие,
should have
там должен был
remained.
остаться.
A lot of
Масса
such very
таких
important
очень
little things,
важных мелочей,
but which will say, is it
которые
your
сразу
imagination?
это ваша
Imagination?
фантазия,
Or was
воображение,
it
или
something
это
real?
было что-то
Definitely not imagination.
Well, then you've got them very
Значит,
interested in
тогда чем-то
something.
вы их
They
шибко
didn't come by
заинтересовали,
chance.
они не случайно
Moreover,
приходили.
they came in 3
Тем более
times
3
without
раза
knocking.
заходили,
In
без
general.
стука.
Can I ask who are you? What are you? What do you want?
Well, no, you can. You can,
Ну,
of
нет,
course.
можно,
But,
конечно,
I'm
но
going to stand here like a mute reproach.
yes.
At that time, we are already running out of time. All questions are asked. Do you think there is anything else?
That. Mass issues. Let's let it go. Let's let it go.
Yes, 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 and a quick response. I want to go back to Buddha. When you were talking about Buddha, right? Buddha was born to Mame. After that, she lived 7 days after the birth of the Buddha, and she went to the 33rd planet. The 33rd planet. She was invited to go to this planet, but she could stay in the wheel of samsara to Earth. Tell me, do you know anything about the 33rd planet? I didn't find anything. And whether it has to do with those Atlantean civilizations and even more ancient civilizations. And just for what reason she chose to stay on this earth, in the wheel of samsara, to live the ordinary life of the future royal, well, let's say, with almost the strongest
Ну,
energy.
зачем?
But it remains clear.
I would have done the same
Я
thing.
бы сделал то
I
же
even
самое.
explained
Я
why today.
сегодня даже объяснил,
Because
почему,
if I
если я
understand
понимаю,
that my
что
own
одна
Creator
жизнь
depends in a
того,
certain
что
way on my
происходит
life,
в этой жизни,
on what
определенного
happens to me in this
рода
life.
собственно,
If He knows the world through me,
он через
then
меня
why
может
should I leave?
зачем мне уходить?
Am I actually an employee or not? In fact, you understand, here we are saying I and God, for example, right. Wrong.
Неверно.
You are simply the
Просто
Creator.
и есть Создатель.
You are just a censor, whatever you want to call it, through you to survive through yourself and get to know this world. Do you want to give up your business halfway?
Выжить через себя и познаете этот мир. Вы как хотите бросить на полпути.
Therefore, her act rather tells me that she was a dedicated person and well understood what she was doing and why she came to this world. Credit. Her credit.
And the 33rd planet, do you know how this came about?
Well, let's just say that in their research, everything that concerns the features of the structures of the fields is nowhere to be found. You know.
Нет, нигде не... Знаете,
It is written in the Buddhist scriptures.
You understand, I will try to explain this situation to you. Everything is also very difficult there. When they tell me the Dalai Lama is the 17th, this one,
Далай Лама, 17-й, он. Вот этот.
he is the incarnation of the previous Dalai Lama.
Предыдущего Далай Ламы.
Friends, look what we are talking about.
Смотрите, о чем мы с вами говорим?
We are talking about the fact that if a person carries out a real reincarnation, he becomes, well, at least a demigod.
Реинкарнацию, он становится, ну, как минимум, полубогом.
Can you call the Dalai Lama a demigod?
Полубогом.
When I saw the Great One, he was not a prophet to me, as it were, of an oracle, the great oracle of Buddhism.
Он не пророк, как бы это, оракула, великого оракула буддизма.
And the way this poor guy was being fucked and twisted, he was spinning on the ground. I just understood that there was something wrong with him, a sick person.
Болен человек.
So if it's great,
Поэтому, если это великий
this is my opinion. This is the prophet of Buddhism, the oracle of Buddhism.
буддизма, ну,
There are serious problems with Buddhism.
серьезные проблемы.
I ask the question all the time when there was such an opportunity. I say, guys, what do you say good about this situation?
Доброго про эту
They
ситуацию.
say, well, first of all, these people in this place are doing everything they do, well, first of all, because they are included in the system of interplanetary and
Они
intergalactic
включены в
communication.
систему межпланетной и межгалактической связи.
In other words, they should do what they do in this place, no more and no less.
Ни больше и ни меньше.
Because for a certain kind of communication, long-distance communication, you need energy,
Энергия.
and someone has to generate this energy. Here they are spinning around, doing something and generating it, creating it, crawling on their bellies, spinning circles. Great.
Отлично.
That's it, nothing more is required of them. They are not experts.
Они не являются знатоками. Как и-
Again, as in Hinduism, when waiting for the gods who came a long time ago from the north and who should come from the north. That is, it's about you. I ask a question, when will you come to India with another mission? Gentlemen, they are waiting for you there, they have been waiting for you in India.
в Индии.
Here, I'm joking of course, and I'm not joking at the same time. I related to this business and somewhat skeptical.
деловое.
At one time, I was offered to go to Hassa, so that I could help them translate the untranslated scrolls from their language into an understandable scientific language. But somehow this has not happened yet. But they lacked all this knowledge, so I received my offer from a person who holds a very high position in this system in Lhasa. There are a lot of texts there. Yes. So interesting on the one hand. Interesting, of course. A lot of things have been preserved there. These are some of the few libraries that have survived, where it is possible to emphasize. But this is a colossal job. Colossal? That's it. They're already chasing us. Get out of here.
Every single one of your performances, it's a masterpiece.
Do you think?
I'm sure.
Yes.
The fact that it is necessary to write down just every word. I want to conclude this speech with the very quote of Vitaly Sudakov, who is here with us. Centuries will pass, and people of the future will look for this book, or what will be preserved from it, drawing from it grains of cosmic wisdom. No author has ever come so close to solving the mystery of humanity, its origin, and the fate of the solar system, in the development of which the pyramids have played, and will play their key decisive role more than once. I am convinced that the Book of the Pyramid, The Legacy of the Gods, and other books by Valery Uvarov will lay the foundation for a new spiritual and historical paradigm, a new view of the world and man, his past and future, which will begin the great revival of the human earth to the heights of the universe. I congratulate you for being a part of the whole great event. Therefore,
Actually, yes.
thank you very much that you really are. Photo shoots.